Jeremy, we're back.
Yeah, we are back, Alex.
We were just talking about kind of where we left off, and my memory served me that it was with your wife nearly having a tragic accident at your restaurant, and you deciding, all right, well, maybe this isn't the business and a location for me. Is that about right?
That is about right, but I don't remember. I don't think I really got through. Like,
I think tell us about the restaurant business.
Yeah. So the restaurant business obviously is something that was way different for us.
A big detour.
And I think that's part of the fun of my life is that there's never been any straight lines anywhere. It's been all, if you will, detours, but that keeps it interesting, and that's why I'm here to tell my story, right?
Yeah. Have you heard about the kind of Greek philosophy on life, where as a young man, you're a student, and then when you become like a teenager, you become a warrior, and then after you become a warrior, you come home and you become a businessman, and after you become a businessman, you become a politician, and then after you become a politician, you become a philosopher. I always kind of like that, because it's like, you have to go through like this arc of life to kind of arrive at the end, which is like, I have knowledge and wisdom, you know, so I can actually use it and impart it. But that's kind of what I think about you. You've kind of gone through all these steps and stages, maybe not as linearly as the Greeks would
but I definitely like that, because and I feel like that's helped me with, like I go back to what my passion was with building teams and working with athletes or any kind of successful business team, and it's being able to relate to everybody, because it's like, hey man, I come from this background. Oddly enough, I've been there. Like, I know exactly what you're talking about. So I think it makes it more relatable in those ways. But the restaurant, it was interesting because I said that we kind of found a location that was a really neat pocket. Because obviously location is super important for something like that. Even though it's takeout and delivery, location is still really important, because you want to have its delivery area, what your radius is. And if anybody listening's had kind of that kind of restaurant, that is location.
And this was probably before Uber Eats, before DoorDash.
Way before 2000.
So you're delivering how are people ordering? They ordering online? They calling in?
Calling. I think like towards the end of it was when they were just starting, like Domino's and some of the bigger chains were just starting to do more of the online ordering. And it's like, hey, well, let's look at what that might look like. But that was still in the distant. It's like, hey, this is off in the future sometime. So yeah, it was all fun. Like, you weren't texting orders, you weren't doing like that, and I think smartphones were just starting to be smart, but we found a location where we could deliver to a lot of hospitals, and I think there were a lot of universities in that area, like Carnegie Mellon, University of Pittsburgh. There's all these different universities that could really, really rock the business pretty well for us. And the location we found was actually right beside a KFC.
Ooh.
And I remember we were down doing our training in Atlanta for the franchise, the Wing Zone corporate headquarters in Atlanta. We're down there. My wife and I were doing this, and my phone kept blowing up. I'm like, what is this? And it was actually the manager of KFC somehow got my number. And he's just like, hey, your workers, your guys that are working on your building have their ladder touching my property. And I'm like, all right, we're like, this is
already starting. We haven't even built the building.
And I'm just like, all right, I said, you want to, this is how you want to start this? And he's just like, I don't, he's like, we're not going to be, we're not going to work together. You can't have your guys parking over here. We're going to be competition. And I said, and I'm like, well, first of all, there's one thing you need to know. Those people that are working there are city workers, because it was a, like an urban development restructuring. It was an older building, and the city got involved. So I'm like, go ahead and call the cops on the city. Go ahead and like have fun with that. Yeah. And he's like, didn't say anything. And I said, secondly, there's something you need to know about me. I'm like, I don't lose.
Oh,
click. That was it. That was it.
That's so sick.
And we proceeded, for the next few years, just to really kick their ass and their sales. Like, they went from being one of the top producing to almost going out of business. Like, they went through 3 managers in like 3 years. They tried everything, and we killed their business.
Do you think if that guy would have been more collaborative at the beginning, you would have not intentionally gone out of your way to take their customers, or?
No. Well, yeah, I don't know. That's a good question.
I would have gone and done the same thing.
I would have went
he
right
was
for
a
the
great
throat.
guy and really loved him.
Okay, man. I just would have sent him some cards once in a while, or hey man,
you would have created an enemy, even if the enemy did not create it.
Yeah, I would have sent him some coupons for our food once in a while. Like, here you go, man. Try our chicken. It's way better than yours. You know.
Well, that's tough. You're in a business like KFC where you probably have very little flexibility in what you can do. I don't know if it was similar with your franchise, but I would imagine, how many locations do you think they had at that point in time?
Man, probably. I mean, it was early, like 30 something. Like, it was still pretty new and pretty heavily dominated, like southern states dominant, and so they were still kind of carving their way and figuring things out.
Did they give you a lot of flexibility then in what you did, or was it pretty strict?
I'd say there was a decent amount of flexibility, more in, so, and these are all Southern guys coming up here. And I remember we opened like in January in Pittsburgh. And they're just like, you have to wear these khakis. This is our uniform, khakis with our polo shirt. And I remember it was like after day one, and I had asked them, I said, hey, can we just wear jeans? Because it's a little thicker than these thin khakis we have. And they're like, no, this is our policy. And I remember the staff that they sent up to work with us after like, was even before the end of the first day. And they're just like, you guys can all wear jeans. You can wear flannels. Like, I don't give a shit what you wear. I don't care. Just, it's got to say Wing Zone on it somewhere. Like, so get some stuff embroidered. I don't care. And so and then that kind of set the tone for everything else. And obviously, if you're winning, if you're producing numbers, and we were top 3 in sales immediately. Like, we killed it. And then you have a little more leniency.
Yeah.
And then we were, and as part of how we want to win, it's like, hey, here's our process. Here's how we do this for marketing. Here's how we do this. And I'm like, well, I don't want to do it that way. I'm going to try it this way. I don't want to spend this amount of money on this. Let's try it this way. And for example, I don't know, like, I know you can't do this anymore, but we'd go door to door and put the door hangers on your doorknob. I mean, I don't know if you guys ever had that. No. I don't know, like, just generational thing, but, and then the door hanger would have, that's like a marketing piece would have some coupons on it or something that, hey, here's a 10 piece, here's a 15 piece, here's, spend 50, whatever. And I had a lot of the employees and this was something that was a big challenge was staffing. And I'll get to that in a little bit, but we would have them, they'd come in and they're from all walks of life, everything. And it's like, hey, we're going to go put up door hangers. And I took our whatever mile radius map and I put zones. Like, I drew up zones on the map, it was like a dry erase map, and we had them color coded, and we had this neat thing of like, hey, we're going to hit zone 1 and 2 today. And like, we'd all meet, we park, and like, I'd have a stopwatch. And like, when I say go, you guys, like, you have these streets, and we're getting back, and here's your box. You got to get through these, and we're going to see who can get back the fastest, who can deliver this stuff. And so it's like, we were running, sprinting from door to door. And it's like, at first we're like, wasn't it going to look like we're trying to steal something? Yeah. Like, and like, no, just go put it on the door and come back. And so we were able to hit these zones every week and put out new flyers, new marketing, new targeting. And in the meantime, my staff was quitting smoking, losing weight, taking more responsibility and ownership of their own health. And they're just like, hey, this feels weird. Like, I had to walk, I could barely walk up these hills because Pittsburgh's so hilly. Like, I could barely get to these houses. I'm up and down steps. Now, like, I'm sprinting 3 steps at a time. I'm doing this. I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. That's you getting in shape. Now what is next? So, like,
how hard was it to get people to buy in on that? Because that's something that I find in our business. We have about 30 people, and all mixtures of health and wellness and fitness. Obviously, I'm not like a trainer or a coach, but fitness and health, I think, is important to everything in your life. Like, if you aren't optimized in terms of being healthy and being fit, and you can move and feel good, then, like, how can you go out and perform at your best, right? So It's like, if there's like a fat, overweight CEO, you're like, are they just like stressed and giving everything to that job, or are they just, not like hitting on one of the really important things that I think is out there? So how did you get people to buy into that? And did you get a lot of pushback, or the people who pushed back were just like, hey, you're not in for this thing?
So now I'll get into a little bit of the staffing, right? I think I'll go there first, but it's like, we, just like anything else, what is your standard, right? Like how, so you set the standard of what we wanted for our staff and our employees. You know, it was pretty simple. We had delivery drivers, we had front desk people that handled the calls, and then we had some cooks. That was literally, you know, those are our 3 areas. And we were so busy sometimes we might have to carry 15 to 20 drivers just rotating through during some of our peak times. And then, you know, we have 2 or 3 people at the front end managers. And then I was a lot, you know, I'm floating for all this. Sometimes I might be the only cook, ticket line, whatever's going on. But I was heavily involved in being in the operation of everything day to day. And so was my wife, right? And them seeing us work hard, it's like, hey, here's the standard. You know, we're working hard, we're working fast, we're being efficient with this. And so we're taking the systems and we're 10xing the systems based on what we know and how hard we know how to work, right? What we had instilled in us. And so people would come in, we'd hire, like it was almost like a revolving door, unfortunately, you know, but that happens, you know, and I see that it's not just, well, these people are just getting paid hourly. Like you think of McDonald's or something else to me, that had nothing to do with it because I see the same thing at any level. Like I have a lot of people with master's degrees and everything else that don't want to work either. So that's not, so you get the standard you create, you get what you accept, right? So we create this high standard. You're going to work. And if working makes you uncomfortable, then this isn't the place for you. And we find out real fast. So like I think I paid, you know, back in the day, you actually put ads in a newspaper. I know you don't do that anymore, and then there were like these mini like college type, you know, city paper type things. And we're putting ads and I just left them in there for 3 years of nonstop. Hey, we're hiring. These are our job positions. We're hiring and I knew that was going to happen. But I think we joke, you know, my wife and I, like we went through about 300 employees in the first year for a 1,000 square foot restaurant, you know, and to get
employee turnover to square footage.
Yeah, I know, to get the little nuggets, to get the ones that were like, hey, this is a rock star, you know, we're going to keep this person. And so part of, you know, getting to your question, part of it was like, hey, these people aren't afraid to work. And a lot of them had, you know, they had some bad habits and they had some mindset things that we're trying to clear up. And so, you know, I held part of my team building was, in my experience, was like, we had meetings, you know, every week we had a staff meeting and it might've been half an hour. You get here half an hour early and it's like, look, we're going to go over some mindset stuff. We're going to go over some goals that day. It's like, look, you know, our deliveries last week, I have stats on this. They were getting out a little late on this, where our focus this week is getting out faster and we're timing that. And then it's like, look, and then there's usually a reward system, guys. If we can hit this, you know, we're gonna close that Saturday of the next month, and we're gonna go to Dave and Buster's for the day, and it's all on me. We're gonna party like crazy, you know. And so it's like, there's an incentive. So it's like I give them some goals, but there's also an incentive, and because it's like you can't keep building in like you're gonna make more money. If you make more deliveries, you make more money, because that's just the way it works. That's not an incentive, right? Like some of them people are motivated, some were motivated by it, but most of them were just like, well, great, I know that already. Like if I put that extra delivery in or extra 2 deliveries in, and then I'm asking them to run on these deliveries. I'm like, hey, when you take your delivery out of the car, you're sprinting to the door, you're dropping it, making the delivery quick, and you're sprinting back. But they can't do that if they're not in shape, right? So like, and then I would explain it to them. Like I always say, like and even the staff I have now, it's like, look, are my goals, you know, I have my goals, and I play the long game on it. So it's like, look, I know I want this, and within the next 6 months, I want everybody running door to door for these deliveries. How do I get there? It's like, so I start to drip this information in there, because most people don't like change and they don't like abrupt change. So I'm going in and it's like, all right, I'm going to start by finding out, first of all, if you can run. Yeah, okay, are you going to injure yourself? And then I guess that's kind of the performance side of me, the coach side, right? Like, can you run? And now it's like, hey guys, I don't know if you know, this is my past background. This is what I do. You know, this is my area of expertise. Believe it or not, it's not restaurants. You know, it's not delivery of wings. And so I'm going to help you. You know, who would, you know, and I frame it in a way that is very positive. Who would not like to be in better shape? You know, unless you like, you know, waking up in the morning feeling like shit and feeling sloppy. And do you like drinking every night? I mean, why are you doing it? You know, what's the purpose? And it's like, well, you know, I don't love it. I just do it because I have nothing else to do. Like, well, guess what? We're going to have some other habits. We're going to join. We're going to have a wiffle ball club, or we're going to do something, right? We're going to get you guys active and engaged, and then we build from there. So that led to the buy-in. A lot of the buy-in. The rest of it was like, hey, we created this standard that now I had buy-in from, maybe one driver and one cook and, one of my front desk staff or customer service or call center type people. And it's like, well, there's 3 employees and we're taking 10 people out to put flyers, and you better believe my ass is running. I'm running, and I'm letting them know they're not going to beat me, man. I will put someone on my back. I don't care. I'll carry somebody. I'll carry the bags. I don't care what it is. You guys and then I would just mess them hey, I'm going to take these 2 areas myself. You guys, I'm going to put 8 of you in this one area. I'm still going to beat you. And then after a while they start getting pissed. They're like, there's no way, man. There's no way. And then I find out I would go back and find out they would just throw 8 flyers on somebody's porch. I'm like, that's cheating. Go pick them up, you know. And then eventually they would beat me. All right, awesome. And then, on the employee thing, because it is one, there's that standard, and 2, it's hard. It's just hard to find people, right? I mean,
especially hard to find good people who are going to buy in.
And it's I wanted quality. Good people that I knew, because the number one area that you lose money in the restaurant is just employee theft. They're just because they can take food, they can oh man, I put the wrong sauce on these 20 wings. Okay, we'll just throw them out. And it's I didn't ever believe in throwing food out. If it's cooked, I would donate it. I would give it somewhere real quick, as long as it wasn't a week old. I mean, I could get rid of it. Or we'd give it out the door. I'd give it to my staff. And so they knew that. So I think that would they purposely screw up 20 wings just so they could eat something? And if they did, it's hey, I'm questioning your character as a human being. And I would explain to them, I would literally explain you are stealing from me right now. And I'm I will open up I'll show you my books. I'll show you what I'm making. And it's I'm not, this is one franchise location. I'm not making $1 million a year. Our gross we were at least $750,000, which is pretty good for a small location like that with deliveries. But your margins are maybe 7.5% to 10%, depending on food costs, labor costs, everything else, insurances. Because now you got extra insurance because you're insuring drivers, which is a whole different ball game. And but then so finding character people that wanted to work hard, and you got to and I knew that. I knew going into it, and corporate, it's just man, you guys are going through a lot of employees, what about unemployment? Honestly, I pay the tax. I don't give a shit at this point. I need people that I can trust to work here. Because it was different for them, because most franchises like that are designed to be owner operator, right? You're not the bigger ones, I think, with a lot bigger investment, let's go back to McDonald's, right? Those are meant for, you don't have to be there, right? So it's absentee owner type thing. But the smaller location we had is designed to be owner operator. And I'm well, I want to change that. I want to push that envelope a little bit. I want to see, maybe I can only work 1 or 2 days. Because the other locations I'm talking, I'm in there every day. I'm cooking. I'm doing this. And yeah, that's going to change. I'm not that guy. I'm going to have it managed. I'm going to set up differently and see where we can go from there. Sorry, quick break. But so going through all these employees, the long goal was and it takes us a lot further, to where am I going to have more locations if I can get it managed correctly, if I like it, but I hated it. And I mean, it was, but going through with the flyers and getting people in shape and finding employees, we ended up having, a lot of employees that were literally either just released from prison or were still in some kind of program for drug violations. And, I tell people that because they're just well, you don't know what it's like to work with some people. I'm man, trust me, I do. Yeah. I do. And they would come in and it's almost they all knew each other, because it was, I have a lot of interesting stories, with a lot of that stuff, and a lot of it's not PG or not even R. So we'll keep some of that out of here. And but they all kind of knew each other, from where they grew up in different areas, or maybe some stuff they've done together. And they would work though, because they had to, especially the ones that were one of our best employees towards the end was a cook we had. Big, muscular, huge dude. And he was actually a classically trained violinist. Went to school at Juilliard. Yeah, how about that? Comes from a musical family. They're all PhDs. They're brilliant. incredible. And he would actually bring his violin. He's like, this guy's full of it. There's no way. And he's playing. I'm like, man, this is like magic. Like this is incredible. But he couldn't stay off some drugs. Like he had some problems. He had some problems, right? He had some demons he was fighting. And it's like, look, we part of the trade-off is when you show your staff and you show them that you really do care of them, like they're not just punching a clock to give you some numbers, right? They're not just there like, hey, I'm not measuring you in productivity. I'm also measuring you as a human, and I'm gonna help you as a human. So if you're willing to talk about your demons and what you're working with, we're gonna help you any way we can. Mm-hmm. And so, he applied, and I think he was kind of nervous about telling us his situation, but he actually he was still. I don't know what you call it, but basically it was still in prison, but it was more like they moved him to this rehab facility.
Like a halfway house
kind of. Yeah. It was kind of like but they owned him. Like he literally was only allowed to leave for like work release. And on that work release, like he had to take the bus there to our restaurant. And then when he got there, he had like 2 minutes to call. Like they basically had it down to like, hey, the bus is going to take this amount of time. You have 2 minutes. Or they called us, and I'd be like, oh shit, he's in the back, man. Let me, and then like, we need to hear his voice. We need to know he's there. And like, you better get up here. And like, if you're going to take a dump, you're going to wait till after you make this phone call. I don't care. I don't care if you crap your pants, man. Like you got to get this phone call in, because they could literally, if he violates where he is there, he goes back into jail. So it's not even like, and so he's living as a resident at this rehabilitation center, and part of his rehab is showing that he can be responsible and kind of transitioning him to work life, right? And I've watched, he was the one that he bought in, and he's running with us, he's doing things, and whatever they would permit. Like he wasn't able to just come on everything all the time. Like there's a lot of check-ins. They didn't want him because. Again, I'm learning more about the mental side of addiction and all those things through him and through what they're teaching. It's like, look, he could lapse if he's alone or he's near an area that maybe he bought something before. He's gonna lapse right back in, and especially if he sees somebody. So it's like we had to almost keep a pretty tight watch on him, but he was amazing, and I'm like, why not? Like that's way outside the box thinking for finding an employee. And so we would talk to some of these, I don't know, they're not really wardens, but the people that basically check in on
parole officer.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Parole officer. And like, hey, that's some of them are coming in, we're feeding them, right? And they're coming in and buying wings. It's like, hey, who do you have that maybe is living at a halfway house that needs to get on his or her feet, in this area? I need some cooks. I need some people that have a personality that can handle some phone calls and do some stuff for us. And that we would get some people that way. And it's like, so we kind of became that place. It's like, hey, I'm going to give you a second, third, or fourth, whatever you're on, chance at just kind of getting it together and going. And most people, they see that criminal record and like, oh, this is a bad person. And it's like, no, like some of these people were amazing, and it's just like the circumstances, or they were in the wrong, they got in the wrong crowd, the wrong influence. And it's like, well, it was my job as being like, they just never had a positive influence in their life. And it's like, we're going to be that positive influence. We're going to be real, but we're also going to help hold them accountable. And we had some that we thought were great, but they lapse, and then they screw up and we don't see them again. And it's like literally, hey, where's so-and-so? Why isn't he here? And then I pick up and call the number, and they're like, oh, he's back. He's gone. Like he violated parole or something. I'm like, all right, it's terrible. So we had to do a lot of non-traditional recruiting, but once we found that, it got really cool. It got really cool. And I feel like that, part of my mission, even, as a coach, is to have that kind of life-altering or life-changing impact on people's lives. And it's like, well, it went from, me helping athletes do this to I'm literally, in some aspect, I could be saving this person's life. They're off the street. They could get shanked somewhere. Like, who knows, right? And so that was a really cool to be able to help in that way, which I never saw that opportunity in the beginning. Like, I'm going to feed people, right? I have a restaurant, I'm going to feed people, and they're always coming back. They're going to come back, they're going to leave, they're come back, and I just got to deliver a little bit of experience, because it wasn't like a dine in, you couldn't eat in there. It's like, hey, I got to deliver a hot, fresh product and get it out, and that's it. But now it's like, hey, how can I build the best team ever for any one of these locations across the country? I want to be number one in the franchise. And it's like, we're consistently in that range.
I love that. You hit on so many important things there, but the big takeaway I grasp from that is a lot of people have kind of a negative outlook on business owners, capitalism. I just had on one of the libertarian presidential candidates, and I was saying to him, like, a lot of people have this negative outlook of capitalism because they think, Jeremy's my boss and he's just like bleeding me. He's making all the money and not reinvesting it into me. But your story and other stories that I hear from business owners that are good business owners and good people, that's the story. They're like, no, I want to help my employees. Like, I want to make them better. And that's what we try to do here. We have an account that they sell protein bars, and they're like, look, we're not curing cancer. We're just selling protein bars. And that really resonated with me, because our mission here is obviously it's get product to people, but where I take my value and where I take my sense of giving back is to our employees. Because just like you, we have some employees that are out of prison, or maybe they've got previous offenses, or maybe they're just the first person in their family to hold a job, like a consistent job. We had one guy who, to us, like, everyone was like, gosh, this guy's really struggling to like get his stuff together. But then I went and picked him up from work a couple of times, and he was like, yeah, my brother lives in a holler, my other brother's in jail, and then my third brother is on disability, So he's the most successful person in his family, and we're looking at him like he can't get his life together. But his family's like, yeah, he's got his stuff together, So some of those people, they just need like a little bit of mentorship, and some of them won't take it, right? Just like you said, somebody will be like, dude, who are you? Like, you're not my dad. Like, forget you. And that's like, cool, you can lead the horse to water, but you cannot make them drink.
Absolutely.
But for you, it sounds like you're cycling enough people in and out that you're like, hey, if you're going to listen and you do want to get better, I'm not going to force it on you. If you want it, here it is. If not, hey, you're just not a fit for our business. Let's move on. And I think that's beautiful what you kind of talked about you did for some of those employees that you didn't get paid for, right? Like, you didn't get paid to coach them up or give them life advice or, work on mentality training. I mean, shoot, I've loaned money to people at this company that I never got back. And it's like, hey, look, that's just part of it, Sometimes you got to do things to try to help somebody. And other people will be like, well, that was dumb. You loaned them money. I'm like, hey, maybe it was dumb, but maybe it's what they needed right now. And maybe someday down the line, they look back and they be like, Alex lent me that money. I never paid him back. Like, I was kind of screwed up. I need to right my ship. Whether they have that thought process or not, you just do what you can. You try your best, and then, as stated, you get the results that you get with the people who care, and they're going to take it.
Yep. Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, you pour as much as you can into them, right? And you show them, like leader, why you show them here's a path. Like here's a clear path, whatever, and whatever your goals are. And that's something I'd always ask, like, that they've never had before. You got somebody coming in and you're thinking, well, this person's making $8 an hour. Why does this guy want to care about my goals? I've never had to think about that before. My goals are just to stay alive, Well, great. Tell me what
to the weekend.
Yeah. Tell me what that goal is. I was like, well, I live with there's 3 families in my house, there's stabbings on my street, whatever. And it's like, well, okay, your goal is to get out of that neighborhood, right? So how do you get there? Let's help you create a path. So it was really investing in the ones that were willing to be helped. And, like, hey, yeah, I want out. I want help me find a way out. And then, like, we had drivers towards the end. I was telling everybody, like, we had drivers that were making more money than I was as the owner.
Been there.
Oh man,
also.
like, and I was just like, I would always joke like, hey guys, like for the next month, you're the owner, I'm the driver. Like that switch for a little bit because you guys are killing it. This is crazy. But it was again, it was getting them to buy in, and they're sprinting and they're carrying 4 bags now. They're stronger, and I had medicine balls and bands. Like you have a gym set up here, like 1,000 square feet, you can't fit a lot in there.
Yeah.
But even we would go on and deliver flyers, and now instead of it taking us 3 hours to flyer a couple neighborhoods, it's like, hey, we're getting it done in an hour and a half. Great guys, we're gonna go to the park down the street. I brought some stuff. We can do some pull-ups on the swing set. We can do some stuff, and so like I'm putting them through like almost like a boot camp style workout, and they love that, man. And then I'm talking like just all different ages, all different styles of life, like everything, but they still loved it, and they got in. I adapted it for them, but they, the cool thing is that a lot of these people. So 2007, I think, is when we got out of it. They still reach out to my wife and I and be like, you guys, those are some of the best years of my life, but you laid the foundation to where I am right now. I thank you for that. Like there were a couple of guys that were in college that dropped out that were our drivers or our cooks. And it's like, here's the deal I wouldn't tell them we're selling it at that point, but it's like, within the next 2 years, you're going to go back to college. You're going to go back and you're going to finish your degree. And they would. And now, the one guy, I think he's got his PhD now. He kept going, and he's just, in psychology or something in that field. But it's like they went on that path, and it was just giving them those little steps and the little positive reminders and helping them create that mindset and the habits that like, hey, I can do this, and I am going to do it. And they did it. So it was kind of pretty cool seeing that all through. And I think I told you before, I got a lot of stories of, just angry people following my drivers back, but the whole thing about restaurants is just building those relationships, and not knowing the area that we fed the cops that were in that zone, in that location, and it's like, hey, we would every once in a while we'd make like 100 wings and take a tray down, and here you go, guys, enjoy it. But it's like I knew that there were, leading to kind of how we finished the last episode, that there were incidents of drivers getting robbed and places getting robbed, and it's like, look, I want you guys to basically be like, we're gonna hover around your restaurant all the time, because if we pop in, we get some free wings. I'm like, yeah, you're damn right you do. I can't even pay for that. That's like me paying for security, right? Private security for my staff, because like if there were days I was driving, and I will say that if you've never been a delivery driver, like you get to disobey every traffic law ever. And so just by putting a car sign, like a restaurant sign on top, and that there's a different kind of power that goes with that. And it's like, yes, I am parked on the sidewalk, 100% on the sidewalk, right. And my blinkers are on, and I have a car sign. So you guys, I can get away with whatever I want, So there was some fun stuff, but the team building aspect was neat. It was challenging. And if you're with a fast food restaurant takeout delivery like that, like I said, we wanted to capture some of the bar crowd late at night, so we're closing it at 1:00, but we don't want to, like, let's say bars close at 2:00. Like we didn't want everybody coming in, because that's the after close, the after closing hour crowd is different than the 1:00 crowd, way different, right? And then we're still delivering to the college kids, but then we did not open for lunch during the week, because it's like we need time to go get our stuff and go get our food supplies and pick up things or whatever we needed. But we would open like early afternoon, and then on weekends we would open pretty early because football, right? And we were blessed because the years that we had that, the Steelers were really good. I think they won like 2 Super Bowls, and
I see.
They might have been flipping cars upside down on the streets. I don't know, something like. But it was. Wow. Yeah, I mean, you got to, right? You win a Super Bowl, you got to go crazy, I guess. I don't know.
I don't know. I'm a Browns fan. I don't know what we would do.
You don't know what that feels like, right? What is this? This is all new. But that obviously that helped business. I mean, I think I can't remember exact numbers, but I know that I think there were the way that we had our wing boxes set up. There were like 300 wings in a box, in a case, and like on Super Bowl, in a matter of like 2 or 3 hours, we might go through like 60 to 100 cases.
Jeez, a lot of wings.
A lot of wings to put out in like 7 fryers, and so you're cranking, man, like all hands on deck for the Super Bowl. And it's still like, people ordering 500 here, 500 there. It got a little crazy, but.
So the pressing question is, are you a boneless wing kind of guy, or you go bone in on your wings? You got a lot of wing experience, man.
I got a lot of wing experience, and I think towards the end we were like boneless. We're just starting to be something.
You're dating yourself, man. Boneless wings weren't a thing. Didn't have Uber Eats.
No, none of that stuff. But it was all bone in.
So you still go that way? Or
yeah,
are you just so done with wings, like at this point?
Well, the funny thing is, like, everyone's like, well, you were in the health and fitness industry and wellness, and you went and you opened up, probably one of the most unhealthy restaurants. I'm like, you can't. That's debatable. Like, it's all unhealthy, right?
Donut
like,
shop,
yeah, I mean, come on, like, what is really? Tell me. But I just really didn't eat our food that much.
Yeah, which is fine.
Yeah.
I mean, not every, like you said, your service that you were providing obviously was for a certain clientele, but I think you probably took your sense of fulfillment, if you want to use that word, in your employees and like building them up and the community that you built around the restaurant. That's kind of how I think about it.
Yeah, and I kind of had to, because I didn't like anything else.
Yeah,
right. I mean, it's like. And I would tell everybody, because like, well, I don't love this part of what I'm doing, and it's like, you don't have to right now, but maybe that's not what you're supposed to be doing. Kind of take a step back, reflect, look at maybe what else, what is the big picture, what are other things, what are there other opportunities within what I'm doing. But doesn't mean doesn't mean stop doing what you're doing at 100%. Like, whatever you're doing, be all in. I'm an all in kind of guy. So it's like, hey, I'm in this restaurant right now. I'm gonna be the best cook. I'm gonna be the best driver. I'm gonna be the best person answering phones. And I suck at answering phones. Like, it's just because people piss me off all the time. And it's like, yeah. And then the big sign: the customer is always right. I'm like, man, no, man. I want to choke this guy.
That's
like,
not true. That's
are you kidding me?
True.
Yeah, it's like. But then I'm looking at that sign. I'm listening to somebody. I'm looking over out this window, and there's KFC. I'm like, I got to beat them so the customer is right. Okay, buddy, I'll send you. You want 20 free wings? I tell you what, you bring me KFC's coupon that you were going to use, and I'll hook you up with stuff. So it's like
That's funny.
Did a lot of sneaky things like that, but it's not really sneaky. It's just winning, right? It's just winning.
But you build up to, you say 7 restaurants, 6.
Well, I had one.
But you built up, correct? You eventually built more? Am I making that up?
I had opportunity to build more because I owned that territory. And I mean, it felt like I had 7 restaurants.
Yeah,
it felt like I had 50, honestly.
Yeah,
I mean, late nights, early mornings, just a lot. It's just nonstop, man.
But probably the thought of, okay, if I really want to make money in this, I need to do 3, 4, 5, 6. Did that just go like in one part of your brain and out the other based on how crazy and hectic it was, and just you go, this is not something that I'm game for, building up to 5, 6, 7?
It was that's a great question, and I think it was, and I explained to my kids, it's like, all right, well, we are there's a point where everybody's like, well, do what you love and you're not working, right? And it's like, well, yeah, but you still got to make money, right? Because you got to still be able to support a family or support yourself or whatever. You still have to have an income or a way to provide, right? But at the same time, that I've learned, because I thought, well, I'll just keep chasing. I can keep chasing money. Yeah, keep chasing money, right? But I hate it, and so it's like, well, all right, is it that I hate it, or should I just need to? It's testing me. It's testing me. Like, I'm good at it. Right. There were people that loved the restaurant business in the franchises who weren't making a third of what we were making, and they've been doing it for longer and they love it. And I'm just like, and so the franchisors are like, you've got to stay in it. You got to do more. You got to do more. And so like, I'm listening to my wife and I are like, well, we got to do more. We can make more money. We finally got the business to the point where the goal was to have somebody managing it. So we went through a few managers, went through some employees that were eating food on deliveries, like just went through a lot of crazy stuff, but we got it managed to where I'm really working 2 days a week. And so then it's like, all right, well, now I have time. Like, I'm working, meaning I'm in there doing things. Like, I'm still working every day. Like, there's still stuff I'm doing. I'm making phone calls. I'm picking up food. I'm doing whatever, but I'm not in there, laboring every day. And so then it's like, at that point, do we open up more locations, or do we sell? And so we finally got at the point where we could sell it, and we decided, like, there's a point where we're done chasing money, because that's just not Like that was a big lesson for me, because it's like, well, you got to keep, suck it up, just do it. You got to find what's good and find the opportunities that are making money, and then just keep, do more of that. And it's like, well, what if I hate it? What if this isn't, the part I hated was was just more of the rest that wasn't for me. And I say I hated it at that time, because I feel like I felt trapped, almost like it was keeping me from the other stuff that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And that was the thing that I think that weighed the heaviest on me, and even my wife. And the cool thing was that we went through those, like, Shawshank Redemption, Andy Frame, right? He just went through a mile of shit to get to the other side, right? That's literally what we felt like. We were going through all this shit to get to the other side. And what was the other side? Like, I feel like we were still going through it, and it's like, what is that other side? Is it the original piece was, I wanted to put up my own gyms. I wanted to have my own training and all this other stuff. But now it's like, we kept hearing this voice like, follow the money. And it's like, all right, what's that? It's like the two wolves, right? The one you feed is the one you get the most of. And we're just like, no, this isn't what we want to do. Yeah, we're good at it because we built teams, right? We look at what we were good at, what parts we were good at. And then we learned a lot about systems and processes, right? So it's like, I always say, I've been in other places and other businesses, and even as a coach at other facilities where they have 85,000 processes, and I'm just like, dude, I had a restaurant that had this is again dating me. Nothing was digital, so it was like I had a 3-ring binder, and it might have had 100 pages of everything, 25 flavors of wings, no matter how big your staff is, delivery, insurance, everything is in there, 100 pages, and it's like we have 3,000 pages of processes and to run this business. And it's like, dude, this is way too much. Like, we need to allow a little more freedom to our staff, freedom to everybody else, because it's a little overkill. But I did learn a lot about, how to systematize things, how to set up a franchise. I observed, what they did as franchisors, how they oversaw everything, the testing. There's a lot of cool things, because somebody would pop in randomly, which really wasn't random because they'd tell us they were coming, but from corporate, and saying, hey, we have 100 different items that we test in your facility, from uniform to your food quality, to what's going out, to delivery times, to all this stuff. And you get a score. And if you're in violation, if your scores are too low, then, obviously you have so many months to bring it back up. Mm-hmm. But it's like, we were always like a 98 because they just liked us. And I think they didn't care about our uniform, but whatever. Yeah, we had some interesting experiences. We had before. Honestly, I'm not going to go political, because I'm not there yet. Right? That's those Greek stages. I'm not. I'm not.
I don't know if any of us are.
Yeah, I'm not there yet. But we had. This is way before the kind of the movement now. But we had a male that was transitioning to a female.
So this was probably like what, 2005,
6, 4 or 5, 5 and 6 maybe. Yeah.
This was not really the topic of conversation at that point in time.
No, not at all. And it was my first experience with anything like that. I come from a small town farm, it's like, and my wife's like, well, okay, yeah, hey, I like this guy as a driver. Like, he's a great driver. He works hard for us, but he's like 6'3" with a beard, and so like that created. Like, that was different. Like, the franchisors have hey, what's the process for this? How do we convey this message with a guy showing up with lipstick and a wig and a bra and whatever, and wearing a skirt that's, 6'3" or 6'4", whatever. And they're just like, well, let me flip through the pages here. We don't have anything for that. Like, I'm like, yeah. Right. So we just had to, I'm like, hey, I'm just letting him be him, and it's like, we would get some phone calls once in a while and be like, yeah, that, you were right. That's exactly what you saw, and explaining it. And, but we didn't, he was one of our best guys that hang out flyers, and it's like, hey, we're going to love him up any way we can. And, end up being one of our best employees too. So, but there was a lot of interesting things like that kind of exposed us to understanding more about, hey, what is going through this person's head, and what are your goals, and so it's like, again, we still invested heavily into all of our employees to build that team and get to the point where we could sell it. So, not 7 locations. Again, it felt like we had 1 million, a lot of stress, way different than what we wanted, but we got to the point where we had other locations picked out.
I see.
So we had other locations around Pittsburgh picked out, and it's like, man, we prayed on it, and my wife and I took a step back a little bit and was like, absolutely not. Like, what are we thinking? This is a terrible idea.
Like going even deeper.
Yeah,
right?
I know. Yeah, like
even harder to unwind.
What are we doing? What are we doing? It's like, and I think that at that time we had no kids, so we were getting ready to start to have kids, and I think my wife was pregnant. I think whenever the incident that happened last time, because it's like we're praying on it, and so we were kind of on the fence, because it's like, well, we can. Because we're talking to other business owners that have multiple locations of franchise, mentors, whatever, because it's like you're going to seek some guidance in the restaurant business or just franchising, right? And they're like, well, once you get more and they're all managed, then you have one manager managing all of them. So you keep replacing you, and enough about, like you could build this next one. It took you 3 years to get it managed and staffed. Like you could build it so much faster now. I'm like, yeah, I'm sure I could. And then, as we're praying on it, we're like, hey, I need a sign. Like, I'm asking for some help on this. What are we doing? And then that's when the whole thing happened.
Yeah, you want to just quickly tell that one more time?
Yeah, I'll try to do the quick version. But basically, there were a lot of robberies and shootings going on around Pittsburgh in the summertime. Gangs like to be out, and they were attacking and targeting some delivery drivers. And so the police in the area were like, hey, just kind of be on the lookout. And I remember it had just gotten dark out, and there was a car going really slow on the main road in front of us. It stops. I'm in the back cooking. There's 2 people out front. All the drivers are out, and one of the people out front is my wife. And there's another woman named Venus. She's out there, handling phone calls too. And then I hear this loud crack, like 2x4s smacking, snapping, and whatever. And I look up, and Venus grabs my wife and just pulls her down behind the front counter. And then I look out, and the car takes off. And I'm just like, and then she hits, we had a silent alarm. She hits a silent alarm, which, cops are there within 30 seconds because we're so close, and we feed them. So again, you want some action, you got to feed them.
Yeah.
And then, so there was somebody close enough to get there. And it's like, then we had double pane windows. Basically the bullet is in the second pane. First pane shattered. The second one is shattering, right? It's peeling and cracking the whole time. And the, where that bullet was coming through was lined up right with where my wife was sitting.
So they were clearly kind of targeting her.
They were targeting. Yeah, they were targeting. It was more of a drive-by, but probably gang related, who knows? And then, but then I'm like, I take that as a good enough sign to.
I think that's a good enough sign.
Yeah, like, hey, yeah, it's time to get out.
It's time to make 3 more restaurants.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I don't think so. But it wasn't because everyone's like, oh, it wasn't that we couldn't still do it, but it's just like, if you were on the fence a little bit, we just probably could have taken any reason, somebody could have got a flat tire, and I've been like, well, that's a reason, we're done. Yeah, right there, that's done. But that was a little more subtle than a shooting, but
that's lightning striking the boat.
Yeah,
you can't mistake that.
No, that's way different. So at that point, then we get a broker, and we work on selling it. And I tell my staff, and again, I'm big on transparency with the staff too. So like I not only was I opening the books and letting them see, like I would in those meetings that we had every week, it's like, hey guys, here were our sales last week. Here's what we got. I lost $200 last week because we had to buy this or we had to fix this inside the building, and you guys broke 2 fryers. So, whatever it was, like that was very transparent. So they felt like they were part of the business and part of the growth, and then they felt the pain when we weren't doing well. So it was, that part was pretty cool. And so then when I told them, hey guys, we love you, but we're selling, we'll make sure there's a great transition. Part of the deal will be that, the new owner will keep you. That's not even a question. New owner has to keep you. We'll make sure that happens. And, at least during the transition. And then you guys it's just like you got to fight for your spot again. But I doubt any owner would come in and just clean house when it's making money. Like, doesn't make any sense to me. And so they were very receptive of it because of how transparent we were the whole time. I think if we would have thrown it on them there would have been panic and chaos, and I would have been back there working every day. So the manager's like, cool, I got it. I got you. I'll see you on Saturday, right? That kind of thing. And that was pretty cool to see how that worked. But the next chapter was going to be to open up my own place and get into that. So then we sell it. And, and I think I might have alluded to it last time, like you don't make money when you're selling one franchise location. Yeah. Like the broker makes money. Honestly, it was like, wait, what? Those 3 years? Or, it's like, so you better invest your cash flow appropriately and be smart with your cash during that time, if you are going to be a one location person, you know, in a small to medium sized franchise like that, like, be really smart with your money. You know, you don't need to be driving any new shiny cars all the time, and you know, there's just no more of those doodads, as Rich Dad calls them, right? Like, none of that stuff. And so from there, you know, I open up my own place, and while I did that, I also, you know, I can't remember exactly when I started, but I had a kind of an equipment manufacturing company.
Yeah, I saw that. You said that.
Yeah, it was called Hoy-Built Custom Fitness, and it was something that my dad, as a welder, I got to connect with him, and we were making like fitness sleds, like you see the Prowlers and those kind of things out there. So we were
probably a little early.
Yeah,
in the sled game.
First one of the first ones,
yeah.
and you know, and it's like, hey, everybody, I think we called ours the lawyer because everybody hated it, and you know, just takes from you, never gives. But I think we called it the lawyer, and we had a couple different versions of it. But I got help from. So Tom Muslinski was a former NFL player who was a strength coach in the NFL for years. He was with your Browns for a while, and then he was with the University of Pittsburgh and I think Memphis and North Carolina, and one of the guys, like, you hop around, right? And then he was an NFL guy for the Jaguars for years, I think after the Browns, but had a lot of great ideas, and he was working with some teams. He was like, hey, we could use some better sleds and some better designs on sleds, and then some weight releasers too, which that it's hard to explain kind of what that is, but you know, it's weights that hang on the side. And then when you squat, if let's say for a squat, you go all the way down, and as you get close to the bottom, there's might be an extra 100 pounds on each side. You can go to the bottom, they kick off the bar. Yeah. And then it deloads and you can stand back up.
So the benefit of that is you're taking the weight, controlling it down.
It's a heavier eccentric, basically, right?
And then it releases so you can actually come back up.
Yep. And so we designed, I worked with my dad, and I like my dad never went to college, but I feel like he would have been an amazing engineer. Like, he just being on the farm, he drew things up, and just this way he engineered things. I'm like, this is incredible. Like, you know, we should patent this, right? Or do whatever. And so he helped me design a lot of these things. And then I worked with I wanted to keep it local. So we went to like a farming company down by Lancaster, Pennsylvania, which is like farming capital of PA. Mm-hmm. All the Amish are down there, all my cousins basically. And, you know, we designed this with them, and we designed the sleds, and you know, when Milo, we call it Tom Muslinski, when Milo went to, was it Cleveland? He's like, hey, I want 20 of those sleds. So the Browns had some of my sleds. Nice. I delivered them. University of Pittsburgh had some. So we're, you know, getting some sleds out. And obviously, when you are in facilities like that, they're going to get attention. People are always in and out of those facilities, right? And I remember somebody telling me, like, hey, you should look at getting a patent on this. And I'm looking and I'm talking to people, and like, it's like $20,000 for a patent at the time. And like, well, then they're talking about a provisional patent. And I'm just like, man, I'm just getting started with this stuff. I don't know do I need to invest in that? And I literally, no sooner was I in the Browns, and like another catalog came out from some companies. These are back when they sent stuff out of the mail, right? Like catalogs, right? Mm-hmm. And again, dating myself, but it came out, and I see basically my sled design, which is the first of its kind on their catalog.
Do you think they saw it from you, or do you think it was just like intuitive kind of?
They were there, and I pick up the phone and I called them, and I'm talking to this guy who's a former NFL lineman somewhere, Iowa or something, and he's just being a complete dick on the phone. And he's just like, hey man, you know, sucks to be you. You should have got a patent, you know, kind of hang up. And just like, I wanted to kill him. I wanted to fight him. And I was telling my wife, I'm like, all right, well, this company's out of Texas. I'll see you later. I'm going for a drive, you know, or I'm going to fly down. I'll be back. And she's like, you know, chalk that up to lesson learned. And then now they're everywhere, right? So like I screwed up on that. And I was just talking to my dad over the weekend. It's like, hey, we still have a couple of sleds in the one shed or the barn or something. I'm just like, yeah, I know. But you know, and those sleds, I still use some. I still stump my house, but. So that was my Hoy-Built custom fitness story. That the lesson there was like, dude, if you have an idea, at least get the provisional patent, just to buy you some time to figure out, can I sell this? Can I market it? Is it worth going all in on the patent, right? And I didn't know anything. You know, I'm learning as I go. I'm making my mistakes, and didn't really have a whole lot of guidance on that. But that was it in transition to my main company. When I opened up my gym, was Finish First Sports Performance. It was my first big company. It had like a double F logo. I had a great logo. Like, that was the company I had for quite a while. But I opened up my first location. There was a client, I was training the kids, and his family had a beer distributor, and they had a bar, they had a drive-in theater, they had like their family had a bunch of land, a bunch of stuff. And he's like, hey, this beer distributor was abandoned, and it was just a little over 1,000, it might have been 1,200 square feet. And it had like a garage door in the front and a couple windows, and everything's busted. Everything's busted because when they left, the distributor left, they left in bad terms, and they just trashed it.
Oh,
so there's like vines and there's snakes in there, and it's just like a complete mess, and it's overgrown. And I remember that. So when I took over, I go look at it, and I'm just like, yeah, this is beautiful. I love it, man. This is exactly what I want. You know?
I'm sure your wife is like, you're a maniac.
Yeah, she's like, what are you doing?
No.
I'm like, hey, this guy is willing to give this to me for like the first so many months, rent free. And I'm like, I know I'm cleaning up his building, but again, you don't make much money selling one franchise. So it's like, I want to be smart with that. Yeah. I want to reinvest it in equipment and things that are going to help drive more money. So like, if I can be smart about negotiating this lease or whatever it is. And so one of my drivers, believe it or not, who was from Ohio, who went to the Culinary Institute, I think Pittsburgh Culinary Institute. So he was a baker too. Like he was a world-class baker. So like when you see these baking shows, like he was one of those guys, but he worked for me as a driver part-time while he was doing that. And then I helped him get a job at Costco as a baker. He was like their head baker there for wedding cakes and all the big cakes. So like this dude's a legit baker. But he really got into, through the flyering, through the running, really got into working out. Like he's like, man, this is really cool. Like I really like this. And so when I sold the restaurant, he reaches out to me. He's like, hey man, like I really think I want to learn, I want to pursue some stuff in the fitness industry. I'm like, dude, you're one of the top bakers in this whole area. You're killing it. Like, are you sure? And he's just like, yeah. And I said, well, tell you what, you come help me. You show me you want to do this. And basically I was looking for some labor help, right?
This guy hadn't done enough for you yet. He's like, God, why did I call this guy?
Yeah, I'm like, hey, I need someone to climb through the top windows and get on the dirty spaces and clean out all the dead stuff. And but I did it with them. So that's the thing. Like, I'm never going to ask someone to do something that I wouldn't do.
Right.
And
that's really important for a leader.
Or I haven't done, right? I haven't done. So it's like, hey, I'm the first guy in. I'm like, hey, we're going to go in here. We're going to clean up all this broken glass. And as I'm telling you that, I'm in there. I'm already starting to pick it up, and I might cut myself, might do whatever, but I'm in there, and so we rented a dumpster. We got everything cleaned up. And I mean, it was, I got to go back through my pictures. I do have pictures of that stuff. And it's like, it was the grungiest thing you can ever imagine. Like even in the back, behind it towards the drive-in theater, it was all overgrown, and we're finding like bent spoons and needles and just stuff that is like, what, really? Like it was crazy, just some crazy stuff. And but his name was Alex, actually. So Alex helped me clean this place up. And, it's like an internship kind of thing. And he studied, I helped him study for a certification, personal training certification. He passed that, and he was working with me for a while. I was crushing it. And he ended up going to the Marines. He's like, hey, I feel a different calling now that I am fit.
Jeez, that
I'm feeling strong. Yeah,
crazy.
he's got a cool story. He went to the Marines, and I think he wanted to be an explosives guy. And it's like, hey, perfect, man. So then, Alex is gone, but I opened up that location and bootstrapped everything. I think one of the local universities was getting rid of some of their equipment. They just got new equipment, and one of the coaches I knew, he's just like, hey, we have some stuff we're basically sending out to recycling. It's not commercial grade. It's kind of residential grade, but it's like really heavy duty because they used it here for years. So obviously you can withstand these football players beating the crap out of it. I'm like, how much you want for it? He's like, come pick it up. I'm like, perfect.
Deal.
Yeah, deal. I'll get it out of your way. And it's like, it just needed some TLC and cleaned up, whatever. But it's like, I did it. And all of a sudden I have 2 racks, and I have some little things. And, I think I got stall mats from Tractor Supply, just building up as best I can. And then, then it rains in this building, and I realized that all the water likes to come in this, and it's like, so it's like, I'm looking around and I'm standing there, and there's like just an inch of water coming all over. I'm like, all right, this could be a problem. Yeah. So it's like just back and forth with the landlord trying to get things situated and figured out. And eventually it turned out pretty cool. And the real cool thing is that, we had, as little as this place was, it was a really cool environment, because you get to create that, right? You get to create that as the business owner. It's like, what do you attract what you want, right? So what you put out is what you're going to attract. So like, this is the environment that I have. It's hard, still hard work. And yes, it's no air conditioning. It's no frills. It literally is like a garage with cracks all over it and busted out windows. And, it's summertime, and yeah, you might get rain on a little bit. It might get a little wet, but you're going to work, man. And if you want to get better, it's the same as I had at Wing Zone. It's like, show me you want to be here, because there's a lot of brighter things. We're gonna go through that mile of shit, but we're gonna do it together, and I'm gonna help you come out on the other side as best I can, right? So it's like, you're not always gonna be going through that shit. And so we would attract a lot of good hockey players. Like in Pittsburgh, it's huge for hockey. Jackets not so much, but yeah. Anyway, that's another podcast episode.
Yeah, well, I'm not a huge hockey fan. I like hockey. I don't know a ton about it. Not like you do. But the Blue Jackets have been historically bad. Yeah,
hockey's awesome. It's great character guys too. Like there's awesome hockey players. It's just great. But so we're attracting some more of those people, and then it's beside a pretty major traffic road, right? So like it's kind of an alternate route to get to a newly developed mall area and towards the airport. And so like there's a lot of traffic on there, and certain times of the day, it's like you could walk out and you could give sandwiches to people because they're just sitting there. Like traffic is just stopped. And I remember being at that facility, and one of the highlights, there were a lot of great athletes coming through there, and we're able to do a lot of really cool things with the business. And again, this is just me and Alex at the time. Alex leaves. It's me. I'm taking interns from different universities. So people that need college credit are coming in. I'm training them. I had an internship curriculum they're going through. And then I started working with Mario Lemieux's kids, his daughters, and then his son Austin.
What did his daughter play? Daughters.
So I worked with the one daughter. Stephanie was a hockey player at the time.
Okay.
And then Austin was also a hockey player, but now I think he's playing golf in college. He was probably better at golf and just amazing golfer.
Less wear and tear on the body.
I know. And he's just smooth. He's just a really good golfer, as is Lemieux. Man, he's an incredible golfer too. Obviously a really good hockey player, but
some people get it all, right?
Yeah, I know some people. But I know that the cool thing was he would literally drive up. So here's one of the greatest hockey players of all time, right? Just a great human being, just great family, great human being. And it's like, all right, he's bringing his kids in here. And cause like part of me subconsciously is like, man, this place, I'm creating this great environment, but dude, it's still a dump. It's still a dump, man. It's like, it's dumpy. I'm doing the best I can. I got new lighting. I got all this stuff in here. But it's still basically a little garage, and some people like that. So this is like CrossFit is just starting to come out. So like the garage thing is just starting to come out, but it's like, here it is. It's cool. And he brings his kids in, and he would park out front and get out of his car during rush hour traffic. So like people are literally stopping their car, running over to get autographs, and are running back in their car. And he didn't mind it. He loved it. Like, so it's like, dude, I could not even pay for that kind of publicity, like the stuff that I got. And then, hey, what are you guys doing in here? What's going on? So I started getting more athletes, and just through word of mouth, and obviously put out a good product. In the service industry, people you can't keep it a secret. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter. People are going to find out because they want to know what, Alex gets faster, he gets stronger, and all of a sudden, they don't see it for most of the summer, and you come back and you're like, holy crap, man, what did you do all summer? Did you take steroids? No, I just worked out, man. I just put the work in. Like you have no idea how much work I put in, how much sweat, I put in that little garage gym. Right. And then, so that was huge. And then, just with the connections, relationships I had with hockey, even going back to last episode, I talked about the Pittsburgh Forge and doing stuff at the Island Sports Center on Neville Island in Pittsburgh. Well, in the meantime, that facility got bought out by Robert Morris University because they were starting a Division I hockey program. They had a Division I hockey program, and they basically needed a rink. So the rinks were there, so they bought that facility and they took over that. And then they now had an indoor field to do some of their practices for lacrosse, and they had an area for track and field, like an outdoor track they built out back. So Robert Morris is built in a bunch of side of hills, and it would have cost them a lot more to develop the land and build the stuff than it did just to buy that. So they bought that. And so now, I still had like Dave Hansen from the Hansen brothers from Slapshot, which you still need to watch.
It popped. It's funny you say that because it popped up like on my Hulu or something.
Oh, really? Yeah. You got to set aside some time to watch that movie. You'll like it, and it might make you appreciate hockey a little differently, but or just appreciate it. Period. I don't know.
The first thing that we got to do is you got to teach me how to skate.
Yeah, we can work on that.
Maybe you or someone you know.
Yeah,
who's more
I'm not a great skater, but there are some guys in the area that can definitely teach you that.
Fundamentals. Put me out there, let me fall on my ass a couple of times, and we'll figure it out.
You'll fall on your ass a lot. And they still do. Even the best do. So that's all part of the game. But Robert Morris bought that facility, had the hockey program, and then through some connections, the coach stops over in my facility because he's like, hey, our guys, the style of play we have at Robert Morris, the conference we're in, we need bigger, more physical, grinding kind of guys, which I'm a hard work. Like that's going to be the basis and foundation of everything we do. It's like, hey, and then team building stuff. And it's like, we're just not getting that with what we have now, the current strength coach, current program. And I'm like, well, I can help you a little bit, but I don't know what options. Like, you guys have a strength coach. I'm an outside contractor. And so, Derek Scully was the head coach, and he's still the head coach there, but he was awesome and instrumental in making something happen. And, it's like, hey, I'm explaining to him my philosophy and what I do. And he's like, this is what I need. What can you help me with? And I'm like, well, I can help you with some of the programs over their breaks. So maybe in the summer, you can bring me the program. I'm not trying to undercut the strength coach, but I also like to win. And like, someone's emotions or feelings in that aspect, I don't know. I didn't know the person at the time. I ended up knowing him, but, what do you want? What do you want to win too? Kind of thing. And he's he's hell bent on winning. So it's like, all right, well, let's create a program. So I'd help him a little bit with that. Then I got to the point where he's like, look, I got approval from the athletic director to independently contract you as a strength coach. So yeah, you'll be, are you interested in being the strength coach for the team? And I'm like, all right, well, that's going to take my time, right, from my business, right. But having that on my website, having that like from a marketing perspective, for what I would pay on marketing, and then I still get to train a team. I can build a team, win a championship, and still make a little bit of money, right? So like I'm weighing all that, right? I'm like, yeah, sure. What are you looking at? And I think it was literally the equivalent of getting paid with meatballs kind of thing at the time. But I'm just like, you know what? And some of these guys I knew because oddly enough, some of those guys played for the Forge. And then this is how many, because you can go play junior hockey. So they might have been 16 when they were with the Forge, or they were younger or whatever. But they're juniors and seniors now at Robert Morris. And so I knew some of the players on the team that were kind of finishing up or just finished, and they're the ones that recommended coming and seeing me. So like I had those connections to Derek Scully saying, you got to go talk to Jeremy Hoy. So they comes to me. And so I did it. I think it was like 2008, 2009. I'm at this time I take on the men's hockey team, and that was just like, I loved it. I loved it because now I got a team of dudes who, want to get better. And, a lot of times in any sport, I just talked to my son about this. A lot of people, they think they're better and more skilled than what they really are. Well, I'm the guy to tell you you're not, right? So it's like, I'm very blunt about, look, if you were that skilled, you probably would not be here at Robert Morris, right? And I'm not saying you'd be at another college, because there's a lot of attractive things about Robert Morris, the coaching, there's a lot of great things there. Maybe you would have been drafted in the NHL if you're really as skilled as you thought you were, and you wouldn't even be going to college. You'd be going playing pro hockey somewhere, right? But there were some super, super skilled hockey players, and just some guys that just needed, like, they were there to develop. So like, I think you got a lot of players that like, hey, we've got a lot of potential here. They just need to get a little stronger. They need to gain 15 pounds. They need to get a little faster, a little this, a little that. And I love that challenge, because my challenges there were different than they had been at some other places, or, as I'll get to soon, that they were at Ohio State or somewhere else, because it's a different kind of player, right? But the bottom line is, what is the culture you want, that Derek Scully wanted as for his team? He's like, we're going to work. We want to be a team that people don't want to play against. So these teams that come in that think they're super skilled, or they've never had to work hard, they are going to absolutely hate us. We're going to outwork them. We're going to beat them in the corners. We're going to grind. We're going to take the puck from them. And we're relentless. We're never going to give up, right? We're never going to, they're going to be like, man, I hate playing Robert Morris. And that's the kind of team we became. And so I had them. We were having a lot of success, and a lot of buy-in from players, buy-in from Derek Schooley, and then he introduced me to the women's program. Later on, I became like the women's strength coach, independently contracted, and that's the only way it could work, because with NCAA, if I'm working with the team, then I cannot have my business, because my business was all recruitable age athletes. That's like a violation, because it turns into a pipeline for recruiting, and I'm not going to say we didn't get some people out of there, but probably could have got a lot more if we were truly trying to violate that, right? If you will. And then, also I became the strength coach for men's, women's lacrosse, because they're like, hey, we see what you're doing here. We want that mentality. We want that team style, that culture, that character. We want that instilled into our players. We want that with our team. And then they went and they started having a lot more success, and they would help build championship teams across all 4 of those teams. And and again, I always say, like, as a strength coach, I'm support staff, right? So like that's what I do. But it's like, and I also help find the resources. So it's like, a true high performance model was what I was exposed to at the Olympic Training Center. And I was just explaining this to one of the coaches I was working with last night. And I said, look, you have to, as a strength coach, I want to be a strength coach. I'm not, I understand nutrition. I know a lot about nutrition, but I want a dietitian to handle that, because that's their job. That's their specialty, right? And that's what they do at the highest level, high performance model, right? You have a dietitian that handles nutrition. You have a chiropractor that does that, physical therapist, sports psychologist. You have all these support staff with their specialty areas. But too often in this industry, everybody like, well, the strength coach can do all that. Yeah, but I'm making a fraction of what I should then. If I'm doing all this, then I should charge 10 times what I'm charging, because you're getting all this stuff that you have to pay a lot more for to go get everywhere else. Right.
Well, right. And you can only give 1/10 of your effort to training if you also have to do diet, and you have to do PT, and you have to do so on and so forth.
Yep. So it's just bringing in the different experts and professionals to kind of help build this program that, kind of took off and they ran with it. So it's like, hey, we got it going. I did one of my favorite things was we did a team building thing with men's hockey, and we called it Hell Week. And so this was a time I've studied different team building things within the military. I said I had some family that was in the military, and and understanding, how do you break down what could I do with a team of college players, because it's like I can't injure them. Right. I don't want to injure anybody. Right. But I want to break them down to the point and get them to be unselfish and kind of be this whole, right? Hey, we're one unit, right? Not a bunch of individuals. And so I created this Hell Week program, and it actually was pretty cool. So I did the first week back in the fall, I did a week of testing, and testing was hard. It was intentionally hard.
What kind of stuff?
So we did like usual stuff, because I want to make sure they were in shape coming back from the summer.
But hockey's played throughout the winter in the collegiate level. It
is, but you literally start practices, and they come back in earlier, starting skating, because skating is such a unique skill set that you don't want them, and it is very taxing on you can get overuse issues pretty quickly. So you don't want to be skating every day in the summer. You need to take some time off the ice, but you got to come back and you got to learn and use your edges. And there's a lot of power skating stuff you get on the ice. So that's where it's different than a field sport. A field sport, I can go out and I can work on speed stuff in the summer on the field, but to work on skating, you've got to be skating, and you've got to work with somebody that's an expert at skating and can teach you all the different things, the positional things, how to use your edges, turning, starting, stop, all the different things. And so, I wanted them doing some of that stuff, but I didn't want them on the ice too much, because then I'm dealing with too many overuse issues, low back problems, stuff that we had during the season. So they come back and they would do your traditional vertical jump, broad jump, different testing, power. Did you get, weight, body fat? I had body fat standards, so I was testing their body fat, because that was important, right?
Yep.
And then
all the kids are making fun of each other. Oh, dude, 17% body fat.
Yeah.
Okay, how was summer? I can tell.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, pull-ups. We did pull-ups, but they were strict in the point that you couldn't go up until I said up, because a lot of guys would go down to like, hey, coach, I'm straight. What are you talking about? And I wouldn't say a word, and eventually they're like, like up. It's like you can't cheat. So and then I had to feel. We did neutral grip, and I would hold on to the rack, and I had to feel the collarbone touch. I had to feel them hit that. If it didn't touch, I didn't count it.
I remember when I was in college, pull-ups. I don't remember their pull-ups. I think they were chin-ups, but I was doing them. And our strength coach, he counted three times for me, like three, and I was like, God damn,
like, are you kidding
on,
me? Yeah,
man.
yeah.
And I still like
Five.
I did like 20 some, but I was like, I really did like 27, you know. But
yeah. That's me. I'm that guy. You know, it's like, hey, I don't care if you're pissed off. Like, you're gonna do it right because there's a standard we're gonna hold with everybody.
Yeah, that
right?
was A.G. Kruger. I know you know A.G. from the throwing thing.
Yeah. So then the
4-time Olympian. You got to listen to a guy like
exactly.
that, you know?
He probably knows something, right?
Yeah, he does know a couple things.
So the pull-ups, we did, we did a bunch of different tests, but it got harder kind of as the week went on. So Saturday was like, we did a run test, and they hated the run test.
Are hockey players like bad runners?
No. I mean, some, but they just hate it. It's just, if they loved it, they would have chose a different sport.
Yeah,
right.
I mean,
like, because like I had hockey players that were offered scholarships for lacrosse because a lot of these Canadians playing lacrosse too, and they're just like, no, it's too much running. I want to skate. They just love it. It's different but similar, right?
Yeah.
And we also did I used to, and I evolved in how I did the test. So like you just like anything else, even in business, right? You find stuff, and I always say that there's a quote out there. It's like you can only manage what you measure, right? And I take that for everything that I do, and it's like I'm managing it. I'm evaluating my programs. I'm evaluating what is this kid doing outside of here. What are my employees doing? Like what if I'm not measuring something, and then evaluating and looking deeper at those numbers. Like, what am I really doing, right? Like, because you can set all your goals all you want, but then if you're not measuring it, like, how do you know you're anywhere near? So with these guys, I would measure, and I'd say I used to do like a 3-rep max front squat when they came back, because I know they're working their ass off all summer. They come back, and it's like, all right, well, do I want them going that heavy without my supervision? And I trust a lot of strength coaches out there, right? But there are also a lot of shitty ones, and I don't like a lot of them. To be honest with you, like. It's just for whatever ego reasons or whatever. But there are some amazing ones. There's some amazing human beings in the field too. I think it goes with anything, right? Like you get a little bit of both. And so my answer to that was no, I didn't want them doing that. And so I changed it to where it's like, all right, well, you have to do a certain weight as many times as you can. And I started out with no time limit. And so like eventually we got to where there was, a couple years out into it, it's like, hey, we're going to do a back squat test at 225 pounds. And you're going to go to parallel just because I needed to have a standard. It's like I couldn't go and like, well, if or whatever that standard was, that's what it was for everybody. Right. And there's no time limit. You can do as many as you can. And I literally had guys getting like 70, 80, 90 reps with 225 pounds and squatting like almost nonstop for 7 minutes. And I mean, these, so I'm like, all right, this guy, he's probably in pretty good shape.
Yeah,
I think he's probably in pretty good shape. But I was like, what are you doing, man? You're supposed to get 100. What's wrong with you?
I can't imagine what that guy's legs were like the next day.
Oh, man.
Just obliterated.
Well, the thing was, like, they prepare. It was, I think the first we did it, they were shit pretty much. And then as the longer we got into it, it's like, hey, I'm sore but I can still do things. So we test. And that might be the only test that day, but then there's a lot of recovery strategies. So there's hydration, nutrition, there's just a lot of things that we can do for recovery that we added in. So it turns into education pieces and getting them to buy into more habits. It's like, oh, you feel like shit. Let me help you. Like this is something you should be doing. And this is what we should do after our games too, because your legs are going to feel like this after a game. Mm-hmm. So it's like a lot of different buy-in from that perspective. And then the run test was 300-yard shuttles. So it's 50 down and back. 6 times.
50 down and back 6 times. Okay.
And I purposely, it was like you had to get it in. I gave them the time they had to get it in. So one, if you sucked at running, you better get better.
Yeah.
You better get faster, right? And a lot of the getting faster was just they weren't in good enough shape or they didn't push themselves. And then you had, I think they had 2 minutes rest to go again, which is pushing it because usually it'd be like 1 to 3. If you look at a hockey shift, like I try to keep it. I could have made it very specific, but I'm like, nah, I'm gonna test you a little bit. We're only running 8 of these, right? But it sucked. It was hard. And then I made them run those first, and it was pass fail. So if you failed one, the whole team effed basically. Like you all got punished because I wanted accountability throughout the team all summer. So it's like if you're an incoming freshman and I'm a sophomore and I'm like, well, Alex is going to come in shape. What's the big deal? It's like, no, Alex, are you running? And like, oh yeah, I'm running. What are you running? Are you following the program? Because man, if you fail that run test, I'm going to beat your ass because we all get punished. Like don't do it. We're a team. We win as a team, lose as a team. You don't be the weak link. And so it's like a lot of that accountability from the team was pretty cool to see. Right. And then after they run the 300s, then we did a push-up test. And I think I had one more. It might have been like a burpee test after that. I just threw a burpee test in there because I hated them. Right. It's like, hey, you guys, I had to find out where you are mentally. Are you going to push yourself? Yes, it sucks. I know it sucks, but you're going to do it anyway. Because guess what? The ref made a bad call, and maybe now he allowed a goal that went to overtime because of he put you in a power play or a penalty. He put you in a penalty kill, and they scored, and now you're in overtime. What mindset are you going to have? If your legs feel terrible, are you going to be like, well, it's overtime. You're going to throw the towel in, or are you going to be like, let's go, baby. You don't work as hard as me. You have not been there. We live for this stuff. Yeah. I'm so glad we're in overtime. I'm going to kill you. It's going to be great. So you kind of create that culture, which is pretty weird. So that's the testing. And then I even created it to where, you became, the last couple of years I did it. I think there's 8 300s. I took 8 of the many tests that we had. Let's say I had 12 tests. One of them was just like you hang as long as you can, and that was where you gut it out. So you're looking at, we had guys that were 230 pounds hanging for 5.5 minutes on a bar.
That's a lot.
It is a lot, man, and it's incredible. So that's just, I always say the first minute, anybody can do a minute, right? After that, we find out what you got.
Yeah.
And then it's like you're staring another guy across the rack. I was like, hey,
God, you made him go at the same time.
Yeah, let's go. So it's like, hey, we had 8 tests. And then I had a winner. So if you come in and you won the bench press test, or you won the squat test, whatever it was, whatever test we had, it could have been a broad jump. Maybe you had the best broad jump, you won. If you win a test, you have the choice of not running one of the 800s. Or one of the 300s. Sorry, you have one of the 300s, and you get to choose which one. So like you could be like, I'm 4 in, like, coach, number 5, I'm sitting out.
Need a rest,
Need a rest, right? And without thinking about it, this wasn't something that I originally thought about. So like we did it, and it's the first year. I'm like, we're doing it, and I think it was after like the 4th one. One of the captains, one of the leaders, on the team, and we hadn't voted for captains yet, but one of the leaders coming back, he's just like, "Hey, coach." I'm like, "Yeah, he's crushing this. He's basically winning all the first 4." And he sees one of the freshmen just struggling, like barely, like if it says 56 seconds and he's like 55, just crossing the line barely, right? He's like, "Hey, I want to use one of mine." And I look at him like, "What?" Like, dude, you're killing it. He's like, "Yeah, but I want to give it to him." And I'm just like, damn, that is some awesome stuff right there. And I said, absolutely. Like, yeah, you can. Absolutely. And like, and then dude, how much that kid looked up to him at that point. And then I saw other guys doing the same thing, because the guys that returned started giving it away to guys that were freshmen that didn't do the work. And then we brought it in at the end, and I'm just like, and they were very, I'm like, we were big on communication, right? So it's like those freshmen were just like, that was the awesomest thing I think anyone has ever done has done for me, knowing that we would have been punished as a team. That was very unselfish. And he's like, yeah, we're a team here. That's how we do things. He's like, I was going to make it. I did the work. And he's like, the lesson there is you got to do the work, but we also got your back. It's like, that was some pretty cool stuff coming out of that. And then that would lead, I would tell them afterwards, they go through all that shit together the whole first week, right? But it was kind of cool how you watch them start to come together already at that point. And then right after they did their last test and they had that discussion amongst the team, I'm like, all right, guys, here's the deal. Within the next 24 hours, I'm going to call your captain. When I call your captain, you have 30 minutes to assemble the whole team and meet me wherever I say to meet me. And that's when Hell Week begins.
Brutal.
Dude, they weren't sleeping. Yeah. They weren't sleeping. But they didn't know this either. There are NCAA rules. It's like there's a blackout period where you can't like do anything between midnight and 2 a.m. or 3 or 4, whatever. So like and that didn't happen at first. So I would call them like at 1:56 in the morning and be like, get your ass down here. This is where we're going. And like, meet me there. You got 30 minutes. And then I would tell them, like, you all gotta wear the same shorts, same shirt, no jewelry, none of this, no hats, blah, 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 the whole thing. You all look the same. And so they would get there, and like there were kids that were trying to like chug coffee or get a Monster or something on the way down. Cause back then it was only, I think Monster was like the only brand of energy drink out there. And it's like, they're trying to do it and they would spill it over themselves, and like, they're just a mess. And so the shirts untucked, like just different things that I would go through them. And they used to call me, they call me Master Chief.
Okay.
Because they have to at that point, right? Yeah, right? I mean, there's got to be a nickname. So one coach came up with that. He's just like, yeah, they're going to call you Master Chief. And so I had this old, like axe handle, this old handle or sledgehammer handle that had like a little crack in it, but it was all painted black and it said Master Chief on it. So I would carry this thing around, and
you're having way too much fun.
Way too much fun, man. But it was dark out. So like we got the campus cops involved, and they were setting out flares and doing whatever we needed to. But we had to be in a place that could make a lot of noise, because we would, or we could make noise and it didn't affect any kind of noise ordinances or violations, right? So then we bring them down. It's dark. And we're just getting them. It's early. Hey, you guys line up by birthday without talking, or line up by this, or do this, or do that by number, and then it's all these things. But then obviously it is part of strength conditioning. So there's team building. So like I'm going to warm them up. I warm them up. I take them through a good warm up, appropriate warm up, and then we get into stuff. And we did basically log PT. So I had 10-foot. I want to say it was 6-inch diameter PVC stuffed with, everyone had 110 pounds of sand in it. Now imagine you got guys that can squat 225 70 times. Yeah. I think the worst guy got like 48. So like these guys are, and that strong. That kid might have been 165 pounds. So these guys are just strong, explosive, powerful, right? So 110 pounds of sand, 10-foot log, and I put end caps on it. And so we would start, like, all right, and we'd go by height. So like everybody lined up by height, one of the last things. And it's like, all right, you 7 guys or you 6 guys are on this log. You can't pick it up. This is your log. You love your log. You can't pick it up until I tell you to do it. If you drop it, there's hell to pay, right? Do not drop this log. And we would just start. And I'd be like, all right, take it for a walk, 100 yards, take it for a walk, come back. And we would do different things. And then it would lead up to, all right, we're going to put it in the front now. You're going to front squat it. And I'm not caring if you're going to parallel. You got 6 guys squatting a 110-pound log. But I'm looking for it going straight. And one thing I forgot to mention is before we started this, as a coaching staff, we're going through and like, all right, who are let's say we map it out based on how many guys we have. We're going to need 5 logs or 6 logs. How do we, who are our 5 or 6 leaders that you think this year you want to give a shot at wearing the C or the A for the assistant captain? And then every one of them got a glow stick. And they got to put the glow stick goes around their neck because it's dark, and that's who the leader is supposed to be of that log, right? And it was a way for me, because it was basically a leadership development program. Like, is this kid capable? Does anybody listen to him? Because you think this is your leader. Does he have 0 followers? What is his leadership style? Is he worth investing in or not? Is he a terrible communicator? What kind of guy is he? And so, as they're squatting, I'm telling them like the log has to be perfectly flat. And sometimes it was, sometimes it wasn't. And even when it was, they called these, I think they call these like fuck games basically in the military, right? Because you're fucked either way. Yeah. Right? and it's like, all right, well, they knew. In the beginning, it just, man, it messed them so much, because like they would be like, they're looking and it's on their command. Like, I'm not commanding them. Like, they have to lead their unit and communicate and be like, and I'd look over and be like, Alex, what are you doing? Like, that is so crooked. Go again or do it again. And like, I would say, like, certain guys would be doing it great long enough. Like, hey, go ahead and sit it down. And there'd be one crew they would see sit it down. Then other guys would just lose their shit. They'd lose it. Be like, oh, what? This is the 9,000 squat. Yeah. Like, is it really? No, it's not. And then, after we do that for a while, and then we bring it in, and I'd be like, what are some things you learn? Like, I can tell you some things I saw in communication that weren't good, and then I would explain to them like how to improve the communication amongst each other and different things. Or I might let it go 3 drills, because the next one, the one where it really, really got them was the lunges. So we would lunge 100 yards, and I would say, hey, we got to pick it up, can't put it down, start overhead, everybody on your right shoulder, and then go. You got to command your lunges. And so we have guys that are 5-inch difference between the guy in the front and the back, taking longer steps, shorter steps, which messes up that thing staying straight, right? Mm-hmm. Again, 110. It wasn't even the lunges. These guys could have lunged for hours for me. It wasn't a big deal. It was more the mindset getting into their head, like, hey, you've got to communicate this. Like, and I didn't care if you switched your order on the log, stop, go back. So I'd be like, hey, all you got to do, guys, is go down 100 yards, turn around, and come back on the right shoulder. That's it. You just got to lunge 100 yards and back. Like, this is really light for you guys. Like, this is ridiculous. And then it would take 40 minutes for me to let a guy go past 30 yards because I'm just like, that's terrible. And then it goes back to the whole fuck games. Like, man, those are good lunges. And I'm like, terrible. Are you kidding me? Go. And like, they just knew it. Like, I would just like, turn around. That's ridiculous. And then it's like, and I would always say like, hey, how you're reacting to me is the same way you're going to react to, like, I just called a penalty on you and you weren't anywhere near the guy and your stick didn't slash him and whatever it was. And I'm like, and your teammates, look how it affected your unit. Not get alone. Like, now it could affect your whole team. If you all were carrying one log, you just screwed your whole team based on your attitude and your response to that. So it was really cool kind of putting all it together. And then, we'd bring it in, we do some team building stuff where they actually had to think. And there was a lot of like little games where you put logs down and you got to move the log to move around, or the rest of it's lava. So like we did some fun. And I worked with, Amy Kimball, Dr. Amy Kimball is a sports psychologist. I think she's with the Washington Capitals right now. She was with New Jersey Devils. Before that, she was with the Pittsburgh Penguins. She's a Pittsburgh gal, but she's awesome, and she does a lot of team building stuff for the youth programs in Pittsburgh. So I would just call her and be like, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm doing. This is non-negotiable. I'm literally going to do all these games. And I said, but what are some other ideas? And she pointed me to resources in the right direction. Like, hey, try this, try that. What do you think? And just some communication pieces. And by the end of that week, and it got to the point where like coach would get them a different shirt. They had a different like camouflage shirt, and then we did that's a lot of fun stuff. And then we obviously, I built in some recovery stuff, and we still worked out. Like, there was still that week, but they would basically celebrate the end of Hell Week. There was this huge celebration, like, and it's like, hey, congratulations, you guys. Now, and we selfishly as coaches, we knew who our leaders were. Mm-hmm. And then we had some really good meetings after that. It's like, hey, these 5 guys, only 2 of them have any kind of leadership qualities. However, the 2 of those guys are sophomores. 2 of the other guys are sophomores. So if you want to give them the A, I can work with them every week. We can develop them. We have some resources. I can teach them how to be better leaders. We can work on communication skills. And so it's like we developed some of these leaders into where they became a really good A or a captain their senior year. Or maybe it was like, now this kid, he's just not. I said we don't even give an opportunity because he thinks he's there, but he's got to learn this year that he's not. And so it created some really cool discussions amongst the coaching staff on developing leaders, which is obviously a passion of mine, because that's part of, you can't have successful teams without developing leaders, right? Because how can I move on? How was I able to move on in wing zone and step out of some of those roles unless that cook could be, hey, you're my lead cook, and here's how you communicate this, and here, or you're going to push staff away. So it's teaching them, giving them the skills to continue to develop and build that team while I'm not there, right? It's like, leave it better than you found it. It's like one of those things. So that was a really cool part of it. And then again, they had some success, and I think after my second year doing that, the school is like, you can no longer call this Hell Week.
It's a branding problem.
I'm like, what?
Heck Week.
No. So actually, it was fucked. FUCKT, functional understanding of critical knowledge and training. And
they like that more.
They realize they're not going to push back anymore because I'm going to come up with something even worse. And so it's like, hey, you want to play that game? I'm going to win. I'm going to win.
Get some administrators down there. I tell you what, you go through Hell Week, you can change the name.
Yeah, exactly. You can survive this. And but it was cool, and it was almost like a rite of passage. But it wasn't. Again, the hardest part was just mentally, physically. It was when these guys. I mean, when I talk about the how good a shape these guys were in, like, it's almost an understatement. Like, it got to the point where the buy-in was so incredible. I'm just like, man, you could do anything with this team. It was amazing. And I'm going to go back to what you said about hockey players and running. So I think it was one of my first years there, and they were a big, physical, fast team. Like, they were fast. And in hockey, you want to the more any sport, the more you can recruit speed, the better, right?
Yeah.
So there was speed and skill, and I'm just like, you know what? Everybody tells me that hockey players aren't, like, they can't run, they're not fast. So I'm like, we're going to test. I had the lasers out. We're going to test 40s. And I mean, these guys were running, and in skating, you're pushing hard against the ice, right? So it is loud. You're pushing, right? So these guys ran. Some of these guys ran like that too. It was literally like Clydesdales running down the clop, clop, clop loud. Yeah. But I think these guys were averaging like 4.6 to 4.8 on a 40.
Yeah.
And some of these guys were 215, 220. And they're bringing it. And I'm like, well, if they're bringing it here, imagine the force they're putting in to bring it on the ice. Those collisions, that impact. And this is before they got a little more strict with basically slamming guys against the boards and doing different things. But yeah, so it may not be pretty, but it was fast and explosive, and I think that still holds true.
Dude, that's an unbelievable story about team building right there. I mean,
thanks, man.
And I bet you that team, no matter what they went through, they're like, this is nothing.
It was nothing. Like, we would get into, we get the playoffs, and we're playing teams in the semifinals in our conference, and it's like we're maybe in double overtime, and I'm looking around, and guys they're gassed, and they just look and they smile, they smile at me with their missing teeth, and they're just like, I love this, man. Yeah. Like, this is, and they're just like, one guy would say, they don't know us, man. And they always say, like, who are you when you're tired, right? Who are you when you're tired? What are you made of when you're tired? And that's kind of what we tested, and it's like, we're gonna tell you who you are. Like, we're Robert Morris University men's ice hockey.
That's sweet. Yeah, and I mean, guys who go through stuff together, guys or gals or anybody, this is fleshed out in people that are in the military and they go through combat, those people are bonded together. That's what I felt like with soccer, My team, we got bonded together through the stuff that we had to go through. 6 a.m., AG screaming at us, doing suicides in a gym. I'm like, it's off season. We're like 9 months from the season. Like, I'm not even going to retain any of this fitness.
Right,
it's just work to work kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then those bonds become lifelong bonds. Yeah. And that's how it was for me, and I'm sure that's the same true.
Yeah, and those guys are still, they just posted some pictures because they
still doing it, or
some members kept? Well, I don't think so. No, I don't now that since I left, I don't think so, but I know that they might do something like it, but I mean, you can't replace me. That's that's right. That's like what I bring to it is unique, just like what you would bring to it is unique, right? But I know that they actually cut the program a few years ago.
Interesting. My soccer program got cut before I went into my senior year.
Yeah, and then they brought it back. So this is their first season. They brought it back. So like a lot of the former players came back, and they cut both. They cut men's, women's. So they just brought it back, and now they got the season kicked off.
Dang, man. Well, let's take a quick break, man.
Sure.
And we'll circle back. We'll finish this thing off.
All right, sounds good.
Appreciate it, bro.
Yep.
So you go through these hell weeks, you're finding leaders, you're building teams. It's stuff that you've taken from your restaurant experience, obviously. Mm-hmm. That sounds odd to say out loud, but there's so much to be said about growing leaders, building team. And it sounds like that's really kind of what your focus is. You used a restaurant to build a team and build leaders. You used athletics and training to build teams and leaders. It sounds like you kind of build a team out of anything if you wanted.
Yeah, and I love that. Like I'm super passionate about that. Yeah, I'm super passionate about that. And you could probably see it. Like I think I hit the table harder when I'm talking about team stuff than normal. And this is a nice table, by the way. But that's the builder in me really likes this table. And that is something that I've always studied. And I think I've seen some great examples of leadership, and even in my own family. Like my dad coaching all these teams. Like I didn't like him coaching me all the time. But just some of the stuff the way that he approached leadership and the way that he wanted to, like he deeply cared about the athletes he was coaching, and they could be young, he knew all the families, he knew everybody, like he did that. And then my grandfather, kind of the same thing with his military background, was, kind of a different leadership style, but I got to see a lot of it and kind of his priorities and what he put first in life. And then all the coaches, like I mentioned, like everybody has good coaches and bad coaches growing up. And I was fortunate to have some great coaches. Even, my wrestling coach who, passed away a couple of years ago from high school. Dick Tressler was an amazing wrestler, but I think he might've been 5'2", you know, but his stature was way bigger than that. Like he, you know, and the way that he, you know, just the way that he made you think about things. And, you know, from a leadership perspective, it's like, hey, I'm wrestling some of the best wrestlers. And he's just like, well, you know, respect him, don't fear him. Like, you know, if you go in there and you don't respect him, he's going to make you look stupid because you're going to do things you wouldn't normally do with someone that you respect, kind of what they're able to do. And so just little things that I was taught over the years. And then, you know, like I said, I think around 2001, excuse me, when I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and then when I first got introduced to John Maxwell, it's like, you know, I read, you know, Rich Dad, Poor Dad kind of leads you down, like he has other books to read, and you start doing that. And then John Maxwell has 80,000 books that he wrote by himself, and they're all good. It's like, it's crazy. Like, dude, I think this is what you're supposed to do. Like, you're really good at this. And, but he led me to, like, I think I found, because there was the business side and then there's strength conditioning books. And I tell everybody, like, you know, I don't read a lot of strength conditioning books because as much as they want you to think the industry's changed, it hasn't. They just got better at telling you what actually works because now they have data to provide it. Where
is there like one manual that you go back to in terms of strength and conditioning?
Well, no, I think it's just understanding. I mean, the physiology, understanding the body, and then finding what works for everybody, right? So it's like the more you understand, and when I say the body, it's the mind-body connection, the nervous system, how all that stuff works. And like for me in that field, I'd rather call somebody that's an expert in a certain area and be like, hey, you got an hour. Give me an hour of your time. I want to pick your brain about stuff. Then try to pick up a book because every book is pretty general about a lot of that stuff. And it's like I want to go right to the root of the knowledge, right to the root of everything that's in there. But like I said, it hasn't. And there's a lot of like I read hundreds of books about strength conditioning. I've done a lot of seminars, you know, and because I did need to learn that. And a lot of the old Russian methodology, like a lot of the research books, a lot of like they were doing stuff way before us. And, you know, they've been translated. So there's a lot of, you know, Vladimir's, that sort of, like all these different, like really cool names. And Super Training is a really good book. And then, you know, even here in Ohio, Elite Fitness Systems, Dave Tate, Louis Simmons, they put out a lot of stuff on different types of training because they were pushing the envelope on how things were being done. And Jael Holdsworth, who I work with, you know, every day. And, you know, he's got, you know, he had direct access to Louis and those kind of guys and Tom Ozinski. And there's just a lot of guys that are modern guys that have went back and studied all that stuff from the past. And so some of those resources are over 100 years old. And it's like, hey, that's the root of what really we're doing. But everybody wants to put just like business, they want to put their own brand on it. Well, no, that's not that exercise. That's that. I'm like, no, that is actually that exercise. But you named after yourself, you know, you arrogant douche. It's not yours. Like it was probably created 1,000 years before you. Like they did it in the Ming Dynasty or whatever. Like it's been around forever. It's not even that, guys. So there's a lot of that in industry, but a lot of the stuff that I read, and you know, I tell my staff, it's like, look, I read about business because it's an area that I want to learn more about, right? I need to learn more about understanding, but a lot of it is about communication, leadership, team building, and like the charisma styles, right? Stop hiding, all those kind of things that I've been learning. And it's like that, to me, that is really cool because it's going to make me more effective at building a team because, you know, I can't do it alone, right? Like if I want to build something way bigger and greater than what I'm capable of doing, I need a team, you know, a team that I can get aligned to take us in the right direction to hit that destination. So that is a passion.
If you want to go fast, you go alone. But if you want to go far, you go together.
That's
man.
right. That's true.
I just sent that into my group chat, you know, yesterday, and it's cliche, but it's so true.
It is true.
You can't build a team. Well, not to mention, you know, life is just better when you have people around you that you're excited they're winning, they're excited you're winning.
Yes.
You're contributing to their wins, they're contributing to yours. Everybody's celebrating each other. Everybody wants the same thing. They want the business to go forward. Hey, when the business go forward, you know, we have more money. When we have more money, we distribute it to you guys. And maybe someday out in the future, you know, we could sell the business and you could be part of that win, and then you could be part of building the next culture that comes. And, you know, that's kind of what we try to preach with our employees. And, you know, your actions speak a lot louder than the words that you say.
Yep.
So if they don't see you giving back to them, like they're like, Alex keeps saying that, you know, like he's going to give back, but like he drives his Porsche in here and like, you know, people aren't into that. I drive a 2006 Honda Element for anybody listening here with a bunch of bumper stickers on the back. Places I've been, I'm that guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, we try to show our people, and, you know, a couple of things that you said here, it's funny, you know, some of the stuff that you said you were doing with your restaurant is exactly what we do here. You're like, we set goals on a weekly basis, and then if we hit them, then we have a reward. We literally do that same exact thing.
That's awesome.
We oscillate between 5 different rewards. We do catered lunch, catered breakfast. We do leave at 3:45. We left yesterday at 3:45 because we hit our goals the previous week. We do extra PTO, and we do $30 bonus. We just go through those 5 things, and we just rotate them on a week-by-week basis. We have goals that we set up at the beginning of the week. Everybody gets them. If we hit them all, boom. If not, we just roll into the next week. Okay, that's our thing.
Yeah.
So it's so funny, like some of those things that you picked up on, whether it be intuitively or you read it somewhere. Same thing we're doing. We picked up on it intuitively, or I read it somewhere, and you're just trying to keep that motivation going, because motivation isn't always just monetary. Some people are like that.
Yeah.
But the people who are only monetary, they are not all of your people. And they'll be like, I don't understand why people want to go out to dinner. But the people who want to go out to dinner are like, I'm so thankful you took us out to dinner. I've never been to a restaurant this nice before.
Yep.
Thank you, So you got different strokes for different folks, and you got to lead by example was the other thing that you said. You wouldn't ask somebody to get in there and pick up glass if you weren't willing to do it.
Yep.
And I tell this to my managers all the time. Like, the 2 things that I see people get most pissed off about when it comes to either managers or leaders is lack of consistency, right? Like, if I'm not going to do the thing that I'm asking you to do, like I'm not going to ask you to mop the office floor here if I'm not willing to do it also.
Yep.
Not to say I'm always going to do it or you're always going to do it, but I wouldn't do it if I'm not willing to do it. And then the second one is lack of transparency. And you said you were so transparent with your people. If there's like this cloud of secrecy around like how you move up in the company, I think people just get pissed off with that.
Super, yeah.
And you hit both of those right on the head, and we didn't even talk about that either previously.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, that is the transparency piece. I think it's not easy for a lot of people, even a lot of companies. They're just like, well, I don't, for whatever reason, maybe we're not doing as well as we want them to think we are. And what if our clients find out? What if our customers find out? And it's like, well, maybe you can present it in a way that your whole staff will take ownership of, hey, this is where we are. Our clients don't need to know this. It doesn't affect our product, doesn't affect what we're doing. But let's turn this ship around. And here's how we turn it around, right? So I think there's a lot of teaching and learning moments to bring everyone together as a team. If it's bad, if it's great, then let them share in it. Like, hey, you guys are absolutely amazing. Like, look at this. Like, we're hitting these numbers as a result of this. We made an extra 15,000, this month. And I know that you guys have been asking us to donate to this one charity. I'm writing the check tomorrow, and I want some. We're gonna do it together. We're gonna write it. We're gonna celebrate this. This is absolutely amazing. We're for a good cause. Or we're gonna take this money and we're gonna buy food and take it to all the local food banks and drop this off. And so it's like you can. It's a teaching moment now. It's like, look, we're gonna learn how to give too, right? Everybody, we're in a society. It's take. There's not a whole lot of give, right? Especially to maybe people that a lot of people don't think that are people less fortunate than them. Like, well, I don't have this. This kid has a TV. This kid has that. And it's like, no, it's out there. You need to see what's really out there. And then how can you help? And if it's not money, give your time, give something to help some people out. So I think, to your point, there's just a lot of the transparency kind of opens all it up. It is hard for a lot of people from a company perspective. But once you do it and you frame it in a way that, hey, we're all in this together. We're all going to learn and grow. And if it ships, I'm the captain of this. I'm the captain of this ship, and I'm going to take ownership for it. And whatever that looks like, we're all going to take it together. We're going to sink together, right? I think once they feel like they're that included in that team, then I think you're in a way better spot.
And even for the business owners listening, transparency to me doesn't have to be just like financial. Mm-mm. Like, hey, we made $300,000 in profit this year. It's like, hey, what does the path look like to become like a manager at this company?
Yep.
I'll make it really transparent for you. What does a successful employee look like here? I'll make it really I will tell you the 6 points
exactly.
of being successful at this company. The first 60 days, just worry about these 3 things. Come to work on time, work fast, and be accurate. You do those 3 things, you're on my good list. Yep. That's all it is. I'm transparent with you. If I'm frustrated with you, I'm also transparent, right? And I'm not doing this thing where I'm going behind your back and I'm telling Dave, and then Dave is telling Lindsay, and then Lindsay is telling Bill, and then Bill, it gets back to you like, hey, Alex is annoyed with you. It's like, no, I'll just come tell you like, hey, like the way you handled it, I'm not into. I don't dislike you. You're not a bad person, but we do have to work on this. You know,
Yep.
just be transparent with that person. Be direct with them. You know, there's this thing I love. It's called radical candor. Have you heard this before? But you know, the place that I think most people end up being is on this quadrant. It's ruinous empathy, where it's like, I care about you, so I'm not going to say anything to hurt your feelings. It's the classic, like, hey, you got something in your teeth, but I'm not going to say anything to you because I don't want like you to feel awkward about me telling you that thing. It's like, no, you need to help them.
Yeah, tell them.
Yep. There's like 1 second of pain, and then it's like, great, you fix it out, you know, and that's it. But so many people are like, hey, Jeremy is, you know, he's being a little bit rude with the clients, but I just don't know how to say that to him. I don't know how to, like, you know, get in there because I don't want to hurt his feelings by telling him like, hey, you're not great with clients.
Right.
Maybe you don't realize this. So I just don't say anything. And it's like, really, you're just making life easier on you.
Yep.
You're being really selfish by not saying something to that person.
Yep.
Because instead of telling them, hey, you have some things that you need to work on. I love you and I care about you. That's why I'm telling you these things. You're just taking the kind of easy route where it's like, hey, just not saying anything will keep me and Jeremy on good terms and we're cool. It doesn't matter that he's not doing his best. It's better for me if I don't say anything. And, you know, you got to hammer into your people like, hey, that is not, that's ruinous empathy right there. You got to tell Jeremy when he's not hitting the best that he could be, because it's better for both of you. In the short term, it stinks. Nobody likes to have that conversation, but you got to have it for the long term.
Yeah. I definitely, I like that. And it's even, I say when within our standard, it's like you're creating that standard of accountability. So like it's my obligation to tell you if you're doing something and maybe you're not bringing enough, as much energy as I've seen out of you. And it's like, hey, is everything all right, man? Like, I feel like I noticed that your energy hasn't been the same these last few days as it has been the last 3 months. Like, is everything all right? You know, sleep, whatever. And then it's like, it could open up a conversation where, and it's from a position of now I'm invested, and it's not like, dude, your energy sucks, right? It's what I'm thinking, right? It's what I want to say, but then I approach it from a perspective of, dude, your energy is off. You know, what's going on? Because that affects everybody here. It affects, you know, from a coaching perspective, it affects your team, affects your clients, affects everybody, right? But it just kind of creates that opportunity to maybe dig a little deeper. And if it's something you don't want to talk about, at least you're now aware that it is affecting other people. And sometimes you're like, well, you know what? I got it. I'll handle it. And then like, well, if I keep seeing it, then, you know, we have to, like, you gotta tell me what's going on. Like, there's gotta be a way that somebody else can help, or what is it? And it's like, well, you know, I'm just sleeping like shit. I got this going on, that going on. Like, hey, that's fair. How we can fix that? How can we help that? So I do like, you know, you're right. You're absolutely right. Transparency is all the way across. Like, hey, why do we make this? What we're changing our color to this? You know, why? Well, here's why. And you pull up like a color wheel, like, here's why we're doing this. You know, we've been doing this and this and this. This is what it attracts. We're doing this. We're going to try it and see what happens. Like, so people buy into what they understand, right?
Yes.
So it's like, if you can get them to understand why you made a decision, then your buy-in is a lot higher. And you can still, like, they don't have to agree. Like, I'm not asking you to agree with me making that color change, but this is why we made it. And you could sit here and tell me, well, it's going to fail. I mean, that's your perspective on it. I don't like that. I don't like your attitude towards it. We can talk about that. But at the end of the day, I'm going to give everything I got for the next 3 months or whatever. It's just something that, at least, again, it's another dialogue, it's another conversation, but you understand why. And like, hey, we're all going to be on board taking ownership of this, and let's go from there.
It's so important. You just hit on to tell your people why you're making a decision, or why the thing that you're asking them to do is important. Because so often that little bit, forgetting to tell them the why, is just asking for it to fail. Like, if I ask you, hey, ship these packages today, and then I just walk off, and then, you know, the next morning I come in and they're not shipped, I'm like, Jeremy, what happened? You're like, oh, well, I was getting around to it. And I didn't tell you that the client I told was the packages are going to be there tomorrow morning. Like, and they need them because they start this process tomorrow, and they need to have their part done by Friday. And just by like saying, hey, Jeremy, can you ship these today? I told the client that we're expecting them tomorrow. And if they don't get them tomorrow, then they can't start their process and they have to deliver to somebody by the next day. Right? Like when you hear that, you're like, makes total sense.
Absolutely.
I got to prioritize this because there's a bunch of people that are counting on me. But if I just tell you, hey, please ship them today, you're like, oh, I got 15 things that you've asked me to do. You know, where do I prioritize those things? Just giving that person the extra little why. And they've actually shown this in like psychological experiments where someone will just give any sort of a why as they're trying to cut someone in line. You're standing in a line and people will give like a why that doesn't make any sense. Like, hey, can I cut you in line? My dog died last week. And they're like, yeah, okay. People will just accept it, and they're like, well, that didn't even make any sense. The buy-in was even higher when people had a logical reason for like, hey, can I cut you in line? I need to be somewhere in 10 minutes. Everyone was like, yep, that makes sense.
Sure.
Go ahead. But if people would just go, hey, can I cut you in line? Most people were like, no, you can't just cut me in line. Well, no, this is my spot. So giving your people that why is super important. And, you know, it's interesting. We've come to some of the same ideas about leadership from very different paths.
Yeah.
So tell us what happens with the business and coaching as you're kind of entering this next phase in life, because I know you're going somewhere different.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I do want to say. So Derek Schooley, when I was there, Robert Morris introduced me to Bill Sweetie, who was Mid-Atlantic director, I think, for coach education. Did something with USA Hockey. I can't remember exact title. There's a lot of words in the title, but he's an awesome individual, and these are him and a group of coaches, including Derek and other people, to grow a sport consistently. So USA Hockey, if you're not familiar with it, has the best like a long-term development model for any national governing body within the States. I think they do an amazing job, and knowing that. And it was something they created, you know, you can look it up. It's something they created. It's like the USA Hockey ADM, the Athlete Development Model. And it's something they created to grow the sport, right? Because I think they looked, I can't remember exactly how many years, maybe 15 years ago, and they looked and they're like, well, how do we grow the sport in America? One is we need more viewership, right? We need more outside of the pocket cities that have hockey, right? Well, how do we do that? You know, well, let's look at how many American-born players are playing in NHL. Well, I think it was embarrassingly low at that time. And like, so now we need to truly develop these players. They looked at Finland. They did a lot with Finland, Finland's tiny. It's like the size of New Jersey. And they had a much higher percentage than us. So it was like, well, we have more people participating in hockey, but are we developing them? Are we developing skill? What are we missing the boat on this? So they spent a lot of time going to Finland, studying, working with them, and basically picking apart or hacking other long-term development models for other countries, other sports, and they come up with their own. And it's been super successful. So, you know, they run it for a while, and then after a while now the USA team is, their U18 team or the World Juniors up to 20-year-olds are winning international competition. They're winning world titles, right? So it's like, all right, well, there's something about this model that is working. So check, you know, we'll keep refining that. But then how do we grow the game, right? Because if you wanted to grow soccer, you want to grow another sport, you're limited by how many people can coach, right? And because you need people to coach, you need teams, right? And you don't want just anybody coaching. You want to teach them a way to coach that's effective. So USA Hockey creates this coach education program that has different levels, and they have to go through, because let's say you want to coach, right? And you're like, well, I can't skate. That's fine. You start a level 1 coach. You do a 3-day weekend, 3-day thing. They do some of the stuff on the ice. There are a lot of coaches that can coach from the bench, but they know how to run the systems. They know how, at that age group, you're capable of coaching kids under a certain age as a level 1 coach. And this is all you got to do. Like, it's already, all the practices are laid out. Any of the off ice, you're teaching them to be creative, fun, movement, whatever it is, all that stuff's taken care of. And you can coach leadership styles, all this stuff. And then as your kid gets older, if your kid's on a team, then you go to a level 2. Maybe you learn how to skate, you learn how to do some things. And then just enough to, you can stand on the ice during practice, right? Without falling on your head and breaking your neck. So there's all that in there, but they have a really cool coach education program. So then they implement that, and I start seeing more teams pop up, more things pop up. And that's I feel like that has been tremendous in how it grew the game. So Bill Sweetie, in charge of kind of the Ohio, this Mid-Atlantic, whatever the region is, and West Virginia, Pennsylvania, I think some in New York, and I think that might be it. But he's just like, hey, we need people to come in and teach the off ice, basically what I do, for these coaching clinics. And we have some in Pittsburgh, we have some, around Ohio and New York. We kind of have them, all over, right? And I said, okay, yeah, I mean, and that's what Derek's like, I think you should go do this. We're the only Division I hockey program in Pittsburgh, like the only in that area, right? So he's like, you're the strength coach. I want you to talk about this and this. So I'm like, all right, well, what do I want to teach parents of kids that are 10 years old that they could do off the ice? So it was a lot about habits, mindset, just, different things. And they gave me a presentation they wanted me to follow, and had like 3 slides, and it was the most generic thing I've ever seen in my life. And they literally sent it to me, and I'm like, I'm not going to do this. Like, you've got to let me talk. You got to trust me on this. And they're just like, well, send me your slides. And I sent it, and they're like, yeah, just go with it. And so then I kept tweaking those slides, and I was teaching these future coaches and teaching USA Hockey, the coach education part. And then I would talk about the team building stuff and kind of share some of the stories we were doing. And it was cool for me because I was able to take stuff that I was doing with some of the older kids and like, hey, here's how you should do it with a team of 8-year-olds and 10-year-olds. And here's stuff that you can do, right? And that grew to me coaching all the way up to level 4 coaches, which could be those are pretty much the highest level. If somebody wants level 5, they can get it, but you can coach all the way up to NHL, like level 4. It doesn't matter, right? You can coach pretty much anything, I think, with a level 4. And I could be wrong. Maybe you need level 5. I don't know. But I'm coaching and I'm teaching, Notre Dame would have a coaching clinic, and I'm out there and they're pulling kids in from Indiana, or coaches and parents, and I'm Cleveland. So I'm doing all this, and I got to do a clinic in Iowa or Idaho. Like, so I'm getting some cool travel with that, which was awesome. Cause like I said, it's a small community and they're all really great people. So like that part of hockey being plugged into is just awesome. And then I'm kind of creating the curriculum for some of the coach education. And then while that's going on, I had an opportunity to help out with like the U18 women's program. And so I go out, they run a huge camp at St. Cloud State University in the summer, and then they're doing tryouts because they do world competition, and it's basically a pipeline for your Olympic athletes, for your Olympians. And the Olympics at the time, I had opportunities where they were working with different strength coaches and doing different things, and they're like, hey, would you ever want to do that? Be the Olympic strength coach for hockey, this is women's. And at the time they required like residency, or they required, because like wherever they stayed, you had to be available to coach them there. Maybe they go to Boston for 3 months, and that's what they train before they leave for the world competition. And I'm like, dude, I have 4 kids and a wife, and a business. I can't, I can't do that. And I can't just pick up for 3 months and do it. And so then eventually they changed it to where, I don't think the residency isn't required, but at that time, U18 did not require residency. You show up at the camps, you're there for a week, you train them in Lake Placid, they go compete against international competition, or you go to Tampa and you're there for a week, and then you go, to overseas or wherever they're competing. So I could do that. And so that was cool, where I got to work with, the best U18. So some of these girls are 15, 16, super skilled, super incredible. And now it's like the tryout has 300 something girls. So now I'm coaching and warming up 300 something girls outside a rink at one time. And so like my coaching voice got better. And it's like, how do I get everybody in sync and influence, these young girls to work as a team and be unselfish, and you're working for the flag basically, right? You're playing for the flag. You're not playing. There's not 18 individuals on that team. It's the team. It's Team USA. And that led to me being able to go with them to Russia. Where we won the world championship.
Wow.
And so that was pretty cool. And it's like, they've and that was before. So that was while I still had my business. I still had everything at Robert Morris. I was still doing that, but it was great because it's like, who doesn't want to come play for the guy, with the guy, or be coached by the guy that was working with these teams? And so it was a kind of a recruiting edge, if you will, an advantage. And so I really like that. And then, I got to work with it within my gym. I didn't talk about it, but so my wife was Miss Pennsylvania back in the day. And so she was a pageant girl. Right. And so, but it opened up, and there are a lot of great people in that world too. A lot of beautiful people. Right. And the hockey players loved having those contestants right. in my facility. Right. And the thing was, like, they knew, so some of these women had never worked that hard in their life. And they would come in and be like, hey, I won Miss Pennsylvania, and I have to compete for Miss America in Atlantic City or Vegas or wherever it is. And I'm like, great, we're 6 months out. Let's start working on some habits, nutrition, whatever. And then all of a sudden it'd be like, man, I'm competing in 6 weeks. I'm like, yeah, and your ass has not been in the gym yet. And I know you don't have an ass, so I got to build you an ass, and I got to work on this, and I got to work on that. And then they start panicking, and then they just come in the gym and they're working. And man, it was amazing seeing these women just flip a switch and just work, man. Like, hey, I need you to follow this diet for these next 6 weeks. And I don't care if you don't like it. Do you want to embarrass yourself on national television, or do you want to go out there and look and feel amazing? And it was like building confidence up. And so it was a lot of the same strategies that I had with the athletes. I'm implementing with them, breaking them down. I'm building them back up and finding out what they're made of. And most of them ended up succeeding. Actually, all the ones that succeeded had that inside of them. They just, no one's ever pulled it out. And to me, that was a really cool thing. Everyone's like, oh, you're just training these beauty girls and, you know, these women. I'm like, well, they're also, some of them are doctors, some of them are very successful business owners. And so all they see is the beauty. And it's like, no, these ladies can work, and they will outwork most of the guys I had in there. And it's like, and they're super intelligent. So they, you know, through some of those connections and some other, it brought other women. You know, I had a Dallas Cowboy cheerleader in there, which was kind of cool. Yeah. So I mean, I made it was really cool for the hockey guys. They enjoyed that. And then, but it led to connections that were like in a dance and some other genres that were kind of opposite of anything I've ever done in my life. And it's like, well, I got to study dance. It's like I studied luge and bobsled and skeleton, all these things that are non-traditional. It's like, all right, let's go look at this. What do you do? What movements? And then some of them end up going and working for Disney, like Disney dance, Disney whatever, and then they come back. And then so they were the ones that were always like, hey, you know, you should you have a good look, you should do some acting, you should do something. And I'm just like, my younger brother did acting, and I'm just like, nah, no, that's not me, it's not my thing, right? That's not me. And so like you hear all these stories I have, and it's just me saying yes to a lot of things, right? And it's like I always say, you know, we talked about you got to give up good to be great, right? But it's also, I heard it recently put, like, you can't get to second base without taking your foot off first, right? You can't get to home plate without, you know, stealing. You can't steal bases without taking your foot off. You got to release where you are to get where you're being called to, right? And I wasn't necessarily being called to be an actor, but I'm like, man, this keeps coming up. This has been coming up for like the last 8 years in my gym. These different people. You got to go do this. And I'm like, all right, maybe if something comes along, I consider it, because I was to the point in my gym, you know, I had other coaches helping me work in there. Like, I didn't have to be there all the time. A lot of my, you know, my hockey teams, I had other coaches helping with those as well. Robert Morris, or maybe they couldn't require athletes to stay there in the summer. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of them are Canadian. They go back and they play in the summer, do different things in the summer. So like we might've had a couple kids that stayed in the summer. And they would stay if they were taking classes, but most of them didn't. And so this one girl I was training, she comes in and she's like, hey, you know, there's a movie coming through. She sent it to me. There's a movie coming through. It's filming in Pittsburgh. I'm like, great. Thanks for letting me know, you know, kind of thing. And she's like, no, you have to try out. I'm like, try out for what? There's a tryout? She's like, well, it's the concussion movie with Will Smith.
Will Smith.
And she's like, you have to go try out. They need former football players. And I'm like, well, I mean, that sounds really cool. Like, what kind of trial is it? And it's like, well, it's basically, I dig more. She gets more information. It's like a freaking NFL combine. Like they're like,
they're not.
I'm like, man, I haven't been sprinting like that. And like, they're like, yeah, here's the list of some people that are coming. And like, these are all former D1 players. And this like, and like, yeah. And like, we're going to hit, they want real, like for the movie, they're going to play action. They're going to play real football. I'm like, man, like, you know, I haven't played like that in a while.
It sounds like a great way to tear my Achilles.
Yeah, I know. And I was in that age. I'm in the age group, like high Achilles risk. And I'm just like, you know, I could, yeah, because part of me is like, dude, I just want to play football. Like, I just want to go hit some people. Like, I really want to do this. And then, I said, well, what are the other options? You know, and she's like, well, you know, we need some people in some scenes to play retired football players. And I'm like,
sign me up for that.
Yeah, that could be me. I could be the ex NFL player in the courtroom or whatever, you know, whatever you need. And she's like, all right, well, come downtown. We're having like an open tryout or an open audition tryout for all the different roles we have downtown Pittsburgh. And I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know. And like, I'm joking with my wife about it. And she, you know, she was in that industry for a while. You know, she was a professional singer, all this stuff. And she's like, say, babe, just go do it. Like, what do you have to lose? Like, go do it. Maybe meet some people. Just go. And it's like, oh man, I hate going down. I'm making every excuse in the book. I don't want to go downtown Saturday morning. Are you kidding me? And when I say downtown, my Pittsburgh accent comes out a little bit, but I'm just like, all right, whatever, I'll go. So I go downtown, I park, and literally, as far as you can see out this window, there's a line wrapping around like 4 blocks, people wanting a piece of this movie. And I'm just like,
yep, I'm leaving.
Yeah. I literally was like, so I texted the girl, I'm just like, look, thanks a lot. I'm here. I see the line. Like, I'm not waiting in line. And she's like, hold on. She went to the casting director, and director, calls me, and she's like, hey, come out of this door. And I walk by the whole line. They open a door. I walk in, and then I just walk right in. And there's a line to get in with the 2 casting directors. And this girl like grabs me by the arm, and she's like, "Let's go." She walks her right up, stands me right in front of the casting director, and she's like, "This is Jeremy." And she looks at me and she goes, "Yeah, we have a role for you." I'm just like,
I didn't even say anything.
I'm just like, what if I had a different, a weird voice, or who knows, right? And I said, "Oh, really?" She's like, "Yeah, you have the look that we're looking for." And I said, "For football?" And she's like, "No." She's like, "I need you. If you want to do this," she's like, "we're going to use you a lot." I'm just like, "Okay." I'm like, "All right, what's it entail? Give me some details." And she's just like, she's like, "Here, just I got your number." She's like, I'll call you. We'll get some stuff set up." It's like, all right, whatever. And I literally left. That was my audition. And it's like, okay.
Everybody in that line is furious right
now. Oh man. And what? Like, who is this guy? What happened? And like, cause whatever. And so then I left, and I got a call, and they're like, "Look, we're shooting some scenes, with, one is in a courtroom, one was a courtroom, and Alec Baldwin's in there." And, and it's like, I know I say his name, people have different feelings, but it's like, this is an opportunity for me, right? Like, I'm not judging any human on this. Like, it was cool. It was a cool experience.
Oh, well, you got Alec Baldwin and Will Smith.
Yeah,
so
Will Smith,
controversial
and Luke Wilson was in there. So like, but anyway, I can't remember what order the scenes were in, because it was all kind of a blur to me. But there were a couple other guys. There's a guy who was like in Law and Order. So there are a lot of famous people in that movie, right? And I walk in, they're like, "Hey, wear a suit, do this." Or I went through fitting, wardrobe. They're doing all these things for me, all the different outfits, and then I'm like, "Well, I have this kind of suit." And like, I wear this suit for the one courtroom scene. And so then I go through the courtroom scene, and so that by this time I filmed like three or four scenes, right? And then I came back, and she's like, "Look, I got you in this scene today. We're at the like Omni William Penn downtown in Pittsburgh. We're filming it, and this is I want you to be here for this one." And so I walk in, and the first guy I see is the director, and he looks at me and goes, "What the hell are you doing here?" And I'm like, "Man, am I coming to the wrong entrance? Like, what? I'm here to see Chelsea. She's a casting director." And he's like, you're in too many scenes, man." He's like, "People will pick this film apart, and they'll be like, this guy, because he's like, you have a recognizable look. It's like, we can't mask you, we can't hide you. Like they'll point you out.
I see.
You can't be the retired." And there's things I didn't think about, right? It's like, you can't play this role in this scene and then go be this role in this scene, right? You can't be a guy that worked in the office now, in the NFL offices, and then be a guy that retired 10 years ago in the NFL in the courtroom. It has nothing to do with the NFL, right? You live in Florida or whatever. You can't be these things. I'm like, that makes a lot of sense. And he's like, but you're here for the day, so you might as well just kind of do whatever. He's like, I'm on my way out, like whatever. So he was doing filming stuff, and that was the day where Will Smith was up front. I think the day before that, I did a different courtroom scene, and they piled like 500 people into this courtroom, and it wasn't even a courtroom; it was just a big ass room at this hotel. And they came, and they're looking over everybody, and they're like, "You." I'm like, "What?" And they come over and they grab me, and they're like, "You're going to sit behind Alec Baldwin. He's going to turn around and act like he's talking to you." I'm just like, "Okay, I'm the guy. Yeah, sure." It's like, it's just one of those things. And it's like, so part of me was like, "Hey, am I supposed to be doing this?" Like, I feel like this shit is just way too easy for me. Like, this doesn't happen. Like, this doesn't happen. And I know it's just like background, but whatever. Like, if I wanted, I'm like, well, if I wanted to do this, I probably could do this. I could probably make some more out of this, right? And so then, I'm sitting behind him, and there's scenes, like if you watch Concussion movie, you can see Alec Baldwin, like people it came out and they're sending me pictures like, "Oh my God, that's you. Are you in this movie?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm in this movie. That's me," right? That's me talking to Alec Baldwin. And so I'm talking to him between all the takes, like we're doing whatever. And so then that day that I go in, I go up, and it was supposed to be another it was like a players union meeting, supposed to be an NFL players union meeting. And And I walk up and they're just like, and then he's just like, no. And so the casting director is like, he said no. So go get some breakfast. And I go over and like Will Smith had breakfast for everybody. And I'm like walking over beside Will Smith and, yo, what's up, man? But he's doing it. He didn't leave character. It was like in character. So that accent, how he plays in that movie was him the whole time. Like they call it method acting or something. He was in it the whole time. And so like I'm grabbing, some bagels and stuff that he paid for, whatever. I'm eating all this stuff and I'm literally hanging out. So they have like all the background extras that are over here. And I'm like hanging out on the set with all the celebrities. And I'm like, I'm going to stay. I'm telling myself, I'm like, dude, like I'll wear confidence pretty good. Right. So I'm like, like I always say, I got big shoulders and confidence fits on there. Right. So it's like, I'm walking around and like, yeah, I'm supposed to be here. And I'm like asking people and say, hey, do you guys need help with anything? They sent me in to help you guys. You guys need help with anything? And like, yeah, can you just move this over here, take this camera and help it over there? Yeah. I'm like, sure, man, I'll move it over. Let's go. Like, and so I'm moving stuff on set.
Making yourself useful.
I'm like, dude, if I'm going to be here, I might as well do something. And otherwise I'm going home. Right. So that's going on. And then there was a point where so I walk up and you go through these, the hotel is beautiful. It's a historic hotel. And I'm like walking up these like, large wide staircases and, Will Smith's up there and, he's in character doing his thing. They're rehearsing some scenes. And then I walk into the big room, other big room. And I see like Luke Wilson across the room. So he's, I don't know, 50 yards away. And he's like, yo. I'm just like, I'm the only one on that side. So I'm just like, what the hell? Like, is somebody, like, what's going on here? And he's just like waving. And, and I'm just like, he's come here. So like, I start walking over and he's like, dude, I thought you were Hemsworth, man. I thought you were Hemsworth. And I'm like, dude, I'll be Hemsworth. You want me to be like, what do you, he's like, I talked to him for a little bit. And then by this time, Alec Baldwin's like, hey man, he's like, I want to play football with somebody. Can we toss the ball a little bit? And like, sure. So I'm playing football with like, this is like a circus of a day for me. Right. It's like, I'm like, it was really cool. So like, there's a lot more that day that went on, but I'm just like, this is a really neat experience. And then from there, and this I can't remember what order, if Concussion came before the TV show that I helped out with, or if it came out, I can't remember. But either way, I also, through this same casting director, she's like, look, my hair was longer then, and she's like, let it grow a little bit, let your beard grow a little bit, because I've gone different stages with the beard. And she's like,
on your Instagram.
Oh yeah. So I've done different stages. It's just, it's the advantage of being a guy, right? You can just whatever. And she's like, we're The Outsider. We're filming a season of The Outsiders here. And we took over this couple 100-acre park, on the other side of Pittsburgh, and we built like these cabins, and it's built in the mountains. It's about, these tribes or these clans of basically people that live in the mountains, and people are trying to develop and get them off the land, all this other stuff. I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool, And it was a David Morse who was in Green Mile. He's like the gray hair guy, and then and he was a great dude, by the way. And then Ryan Hurst, who was Opie in Sons of Anarchy.
Okay, yeah.
And he also did, I think, it wasn't Friday Night Lights. It might have been one of those other football movies, like Remember the Titans. I think he might have been one of the linebackers there. And so he was there, and he had long hair, and he's actually bigger than I thought he was. He was about my height. But I think his body was kind of sloppy compared to mine, right? And he can say what he wants, but I'm kind of let himself go. But anyway, that was kind of the role he was playing, though, right? He was a big guy, and he was a super nice guy, and very into his craft, and all these guys were. And there was a redheaded Australian, I think her name was Jillian Alexi. And when I first walked on the set for that, so there were 13 episodes filmed there. They asked me to be part of kind of, I think I was part of Ryan Hurst's tribe, so I was like his family members. And so like 6 or 7 of us, so kind of were with him for a lot of the scenes and doing different things. And I dressed like I lived in the mountains, basically. So like, but it was cool. They were putting like feathers in my hair and doing whatever. But it's like, hey, I don't care, whatever. And so I'm there for just, I think it might have been like my first day there. And there's a stunt director from California, and he's there, and he's like, I'm watching them. They're doing some ATV stuff, right? And they're riding up and down. And I just walk over to him. I'm like, dude, like, do I get to ride an ATV? Like, what do you got there? And then he's talking to me, and he's like, hey, we need some guys that can ride. And I said, I can ride. And I'm looking at him. He's like, yeah, everybody says they can ride, but they can't ride. And I said, I can ride.
You're a country boy.
So where do you want to go?
Yeah.
And he's like, meet me back here at like 4:00 or whatever. And then I'll take you on a trail and see if you can keep up. I'm just like, dude, you have no idea. You have no idea what you're asking me. But I'm like, yeah, 4:00 it is. I'll be here. And so I think the day ended. I did a bunch of scenes where I was, part of the gang. And there weren't any fights yet. There weren't any fight scenes yet. They were coming soon. But I was like, okay, cool. 4:00. And then I meet him. He has another ATV there, and he's like, he's getting ready to like show me how to start it. And I'm just like, it's up, and I'm already like starting to creep a little bit. And he's like, oh, all right, I feel you. Let's go. And he's riding. There's off-road trails. I mean, it's a huge park, and it was a lot of fun. And then, I literally passed him at one point because I didn't know where he was going. But I just like zoomed past him and took an inside turn. I'm like cutting him off, almost wrecking him. And it's like, he's competitive. So like it's turned into like, are we gonna fight? Like, what's gonna happen here? This is great, And then we get towards the end, and there's like some jumps, and I'm like, I'm literally jumping this thing over, and I'm beating the hell out of the ATV, and we land. I like do a donut, and I stop, and I just turn it off, and I kind of put my feet up, and he's like, you can ride. I'm like, yeah, I can ride, man. I told you I can ride. And he's like, all right, I need you here tomorrow. You're going to be a body double for Ryan Hurst. And I'm just like, okay, I have no idea what that means, but yeah, dude, what time? Like, he's like, I'll have Chelsea send information. I'm like, great, I'll be here. And so I get there, and it's like, all the people that I was hanging out with were like, oh, they're going down. They're kind of herding these people over here. They're getting ready to ship, put them on these vans to take them down to the set, right? And they're like, oh no, Jeremy, you're coming this way, and I'm going to the trailers where all the stars, like all. I'm like, ooh, day 2, I'm at the trailers, right? Yeah. All right, like
moving on up,
and it's like, and then I'm getting all this incredible treatment. Like they're bringing me food while I'm sitting there, and it's like it's a different world, and then. Like, all right, we have this outfit, this trailer, go put this on. And like, I literally had to wear the same outfit that Ryan had on. They put this wig, his hair was longer than mine. They gave me beard extensions, and they made him gray. So like I had to look like him. And it was a scene where they had this huge like mud pit, this dirt pit, this ring. And I was riding. I had to ride in the ATV, kind of standing up three-quarter crouch, basically. And I had this big wooden bat with like spikes hanging out of it. And it was me practicing for a joust, basically, or a combat, right? Because there was a scene in there later for that. And so like I'm going. I got one arm just whining this thing out, and then I don't know. I was probably going 35, 40 miles per hour. And I had to drive by and like scream and just knock the head off this wooden dummy, and then like act like it was like I was just violently intense, and I did like 3 takes, and I'm like, dude, that was great. That's all we needed. Like that was perfect. That's what we wanted. And like, yeah, we'll see. We got a lot more stuff for you. I'm just like, all right, great. And so like that started, and then like the next day I had like a union representative coming to me, and she's like, hey, you can get your union card. You can be part of the Actors Guild, because you can get paid. Because of how fast you were going, there's like certain risks. So I could get, every time that scene would air, I could get paid for that.
It's like hazard pay.
And then the main director comes back. He's like, no, he was only going 29. It's 30 miles per hour was a cutoff. He's like, no, he was only going 29. And then the union representative was like, no, he was going 35. And so they're going back and forth. And she's like, how bad do you want to be in the actors union in the guild? And I'm like, I don't, like
I want to make money.
I do, but I don't. Right. And I'm not trying to. And like I know people work their whole lives and work so hard to be in that, and it just happened for me that way, just because it just matched up with my skill set. Like, and I knew that. It's like, you know what? After these 2 things, I may never have anything ever again. And then I'm working, I'm driving, I'm trying to find roles or whatever. And like, that's not what I want to do. It's not. It's fun. It was a lot of fun, right? And so she's like, here's the deal. I can push this issue. I can go all the way to the top. We can talk to the people in the union, the blah, blah, blah. They can make the phone calls, but then the director's going to hate you and you may never work for him again. And I'm like, I just want to ride out this summer, man. Like, I just want to have some fun. I can't finish all the episodes anyway, because I got commitments to my business and my team in August. Yeah, but this time it was like June. And I'm like, but I'm having a lot of fun, right? This is great. And she's like, okay, done. And then so like he had me doing more scenes. Like we're riding like limbs, branches are smack us in the face. And so sometimes I was part of the posse and doing some cool things and shootings and just some fun stuff. I got to see how they did explosives. We had cars blowing up. Like we had some really neat shit that we did in the summer. And the people that, like, I don't think some people understand how specialized and how good some of those people really are at their craft, which is no different than any team, right? Like you have people that have a role in a team, and they brought these people in that were experts at this. And it's like, when it's go time, they expect it to be done and ready. And it was. These guys were amazing. And anytime something went wrong, they fixed it immediately. It was just a really good crew to work with. And they brought in different directors or different producers. I don't know which one's which, but every so often. So not every 2 or 3 episodes was a different person. So they put a different take on the same story, which was kind of cool how they did it. And I mean, I don't think it made the show to make it past a few seasons, but the another cool thing was, so like it was like my second day on set. We were doing a scene like at a barn, and I always had there's a lot of moonshine, a lot of alcohol around. It's just colored water basically, and I walk onto set. And there's this redhead across, and she's like, "Hey," it's in this Australian accent, and then she comes running over, and she's like, "Oh my God!" She's like, "I thought you were Chris." I'm just like, "Chris who?" And she's like, "Hemsworth. He's a good friend of mine." She's like, you, and then this started the conversation again. Like you should. It's like you could go to LA. You could get a lot of work, and then the stunt director is like, "Man," he's like, you can make a ton of money if you go to LA because they need stunt guys that have his look. He has his guy, but they just need guys that aren't afraid.
He's got his preferred stunt guy.
Yeah, he's got his guy.
Funny.
Yeah. A lot of them do. And,
when that guy loses an arm or leg,
yeah, exactly. And they're like, they want athletic people. They want people doing this. And I'm just like, I don't know. And they're like, plus you have a good look. You have an LA look. And I'm like, well, I'm an East Coast guy. So like, I mean, I have nothing against the West Coast. I love it out West, but it's like at this time I got 4 kids and a wife. And I'm like, I really don't feel like raising my kids in LA. And it's not a life or a world I ever looked at. And so you talk about like opportunities and doors, and it's like, I didn't fully close the door. So like, there's always stuff out there, and like, I enjoy talking. I enjoy, all these things and getting in front of people and doing that kind of stuff. But it's like my passion could someday lead to a movie or a film or something. But at this stage and at that stage, it's like, that wasn't the role I wanted, but there were opportunities there to continue it doing or move more into the stunt guy role or pursue something in LA. And like, I'm honored, I'm honored that everybody thinks that. So I used to joke and say, like, on some of my original like Instagram posts, I'm a little more active now, but I would joke like, I'm not a Hemsworth, hashtag not a Hemsworth, not a Hemsworth. But I still get that there's a story, and my whole life is stories. But I said my wife was a pageant winner, right? And so like, it might have been the 10-year anniversary. So it might have been like, maybe it was a little longer than that, 2008, 2010, somewhere in there. It was back in Atlantic City again. So maybe it was in Vegas and I went back to Atlantic City, but whatever it was maybe it was the 20th year. I don't know. I'm dating myself again, but we were in Atlantic City and I went. And so she was meeting up with like the Miss Pennsylvania who won, or Miss America who won that year, Nicole Johnson. Great lady, great woman, great, and there are a lot of really great successful women. Like they're all super, super uber successful, in business, whatever they're doing. And they were like, hey, we're all going down this year. We're going to be recognized. There's a VIP thing we're going to, all the, last 50 years, all this stuff. And it's like, and so my wife's like, let's go. I'm like, yeah, let's go. It's fun, right? It's just Atlantic City. Like, what's not to be fun about Atlantic City? So we go down and there's this like, there's the first night we're down there, there's just some kind of like introductory parade. And security's like letting me by because they think I'm Hemsworth. Like all this stuff's going on, and I was joking. The thing was, I would tell these stories to my wife, and I'm like, babe, people think that I'm a Hemsworth. Like it's just weird. It's weird because I don't think they look that closely on TV or there's a likeness of some sort. I'm a tall guy with long hair. I don't know, and a beard. And she was like, no, that's not true. And then. So like I'm getting she's a former winner and we're with other winners and I'm getting better treatment. Like, right this way, sir.
She's probably so
right this way, sir. And it's like, okay, cool. And then, then I talked to the security guys. I'm like, hey, I'm not Chris Hemsworth. I'm not any of the Hemsworth family. Right. And like, that's cool. You're in here now. You want to stay in here. And like, all right, great. And so then, so that goes on. And then I think the next day, it's like one of the first nights it's on TV. And so I got a really nice suit on, and because I'm with the VIPs. So we're literally like, they have red carpet rolled out, and it's almost like you would imagine for one of these like Academy Award shows where there's fans on both sides, they're screaming, it's crazy, people taking pictures. And I'm like, okay. So I get out and I start walking down the red carpet, and literally they're screaming for me. And I'm with these actual winners, you know, the pageant winners, and they're just like, "Oh my God, it's Chris Hemsworth!" And I looked at my wife. I said, "I told you, like you got to believe me on this now. You got to believe me." And she's like, "This is unreal." She's like, "Chris Hemsworth doesn't have a black wife." I'm like, "I know that."
And also, why would Chris Hemsworth be here?
Yeah, why would he even
pageant,
be there, right?
You know?
Like, I don't understand that. And then so like I'm like, watch this. I would walk over closer to the tape reel, and they're just like, "Oh," they're like reaching for me and grab me and like, I want an autograph. And I was like, no, like I think I had like a fake Australian accent. I was like, no, no autographs. I did something, and then she's like, "This is crazy." And then I'm like, yeah. And then so these other women that were former Miss America is like the real deal. They're just like, this is crazy. Like, this is unreal, right? And I'm like, yeah. And so I walk in, and it doesn't help that I'm sitting like in a third row, like a VIP, and so they think the whole thing was fun. And then I end up talking to security guys again, and they're just like, look. So we're talking to shift a little bit. They're like, "Hey, we need some help with some security." I'm a bigger guy, right? It's like, we need some help with some security stuff the next day for the VIP thing. Can do you want to help out? I'm like, yeah, I'll be there. So like, next thing you know, I'm working security for the Miss America pageant while these girls come in, and there's autograph tables set up, and I'm like grabbing dudes, like, you got to go wait in line, go do this, can't do that. I really took complete control of the security staff, because it's a leadership thing. Like, "Hey guys, I got a guy coming up at 6:00 over here. You need to, did he have ID? No ID? All right, kick him out." It's like, I'm taking control of everything.
Guys are baffled. They're getting thrown out by Chris Hemsworth. They're like, what is going
Chris,
on?
Chris. Like, no. So it was that was a wild like week or whatever I was down. I don't even remember. It was kind of a blur, but it's like. So that goes in with like the whole acting, experience, and but it was cool. It was something different, and something that you never know. The lesson for me there was like, hey, you can only say no for so long, and if the same door keeps opening, go in. Yeah, go in, because it was like it was just that experience maybe I needed to have, or I don't know what it means down the road, because we're human, we don't have all the answers.
Yeah. So has there been any reliving of your acting experience since then, or is that kind of behind you? Are you still keeping the door open? I'm sure.
I mean, I still do stay in touch with some of those people, and we just once in a while reach out to each other and see what's out there. But like, there were so after that, when I said no and I had kind of to leave early, I'm like, I know I probably pissed some people off, but I told them in the beginning that I had some commitments, and so like. And it's not like I was a mean character or anything like that. So it's not like they had to kill me off, right? I just disappeared. I faded. Maybe I overdosed on moonshine. Like, who knows, right? I'm that weird cousin that, see you later, right? But there were opportunities, and like they kept sending me stuff. There were opportunities to do things like in West Virginia. They were like docuseries on the Civil War or something, and they needed some guys that could ride horses. I'm like, hey, I'm your guy. Shoot a gun and ride a horse. Like, I'm your guy, man. Like, let's go. But it's like, yeah, but you got to go down there, and you're going to live in West Virginia for 3 months. Like, they can't do it, man. Yeah. And some of those gigs, they pay. They don't pay too bad, man. Like, you can do pretty good. You can get, some of them are bigger. You can get a couple $1,000s a day, and while you're down there, and they put you up and you stay for whatever. But it's like, it takes a different lifestyle. So maybe someone at a different age, or just a different commitment that's not me. Yeah. Right. But I think it is it's an industry most people don't know about, but it kind of gave me a glimpse more inside that. And it's similar to like when my wife was in the music industry, and, we're doing certain things within that. And, again, we'll probably have to end up doing like 10 podcasts, but
we'll have you back, man.
Yeah. I mean, it's like so she did this while she was getting her professional career off the ground. Her agent, her manager was the same as Christina Aguilera. So she did a lot of stuff in Pittsburgh too. Right. Mm-hmm. So, he's getting her started in the 1 year. So my wife's Dominican. And so there was a Latin American month, and we did a prison tour. Okay. You don't think about that, right? You're just like, well, you did a prison tour, right? So she was singing in all the prisons in Brown, Pennsylvania, and it was like 20 something prisons in 30 days. And she needed someone to go with her. Mm. It's like, that's me. Well, yeah. And so like, I've never been inside these, and some of them were just minimum security, and you're just chilling. And then I went into one that was maximum security prison. And at one point they left me. I'm like, this is me and all the dudes. And like, they're literally like shoulder to shoulder getting ready for this show. And I'm just like, dude, what? Like, because you go in with this notion like, I'm going to get shanked, I'm going to get killed. And like, nobody gave a shit that I was there. Like, nobody cared.
Yeah.
They were here to see the entertainment. And then these guys were all working. Like, so, like, think about the technology it takes to run and put on a production, put on a like full music show. Like, you're talking like soundboards, all this stuff. They had that in there because they're teaching that was a skill, an education department. They're teaching people how to do this kind of stuff. So that was part of that work release or max security, probably what, I don't know. I don't know all the details of how this stuff works, but they're learning a trade. And so like these guys are all running all this stuff. And it might've been some of the best music. Like the production was incredible at a lot of these places. So it's like, it was a different experience, but it was like, it opened up my eyes to a completely different world. Right. And we were talking the same thing, like, man, I don't know if I want to do that. And it's like, well, just say yes, let's go. Let's see what happens. Like, let's just say yes and open the door and go. And then, we're singing in casinos. Not weird. I'm not a singer, but, she's singing in casinos and I'm going along. I'm security detail, that guy, and which they didn't need me at the casinos anyway, but I worked my way into it somehow. Right. But it just goes back to the same thing. Like, you don't know what you don't know, but be willing to learn and don't close every door before it opens. Like if it's there, and it keeps knocking, and it wants you just to tap. Like it's not locked. It wants you to tap and open it up. Just, hey, open it up, take a peek in. Maybe it isn't for you, but maybe it is. I don't know. And again, we don't know how it works. And I know my path is not linear in any way. So maybe I'll be back there someday. I have no idea. It's an industry that maybe I invest in. Maybe I have some singers. Maybe I have something someday. I don't know.
Once the kids are maybe out of the nest.
Who knows?
See what happens. Or any movies that are coming through Columbus, Ohio. You guys got a guy right here.
If you need somebody that's not a Hemsworth, I'm your guy.
So you get into Columbus, Ohio, though, with a hockey team?
Yeah. So I owned my business while I had I had 2 hockey teams and 2 lacrosse teams, Robert Morris, which normally is a full-time gig by itself. I had my gym. My gym at that point, I moved from the smaller square footage facility. I bought another building closer to Robert Morris rink. Mm-hmm. So it's like half a mile from the rink. It was an old garage, and I moved in there. It's about 4,000 square feet. So I'm training teams in there. I've got a lot of contracts. I got some staff. Like it's great. It's going well. I love it. But I'm like, how do I leverage what I do, right? How do I scale this? And it's like, for the longest time, my idea was, and again, there weren't a ton of franchises in sports performance or anything, and there still aren't a ton, but there are more. There's like, Red Line, Parisi, there's a lot of stuff out there now, a lot more stuff. But I'm like, I kept thinking like, well, I just need this huge facility. I just want a bigger facility. Bigger is better. And then I started looking at it. I'm like, well, part of the value, these guys didn't come in here because I had a big facility. They wouldn't come in because of the facility, right? What brought them in here? They learned how to work hard. The parents knew that. They knew what we were all about. My messaging was the same on my website. Everything else was the same. And, I had these contracts with USA Hockey. All this stuff was great. So like, all right, well, what are my options? And so I started meeting with some experts, some different attorneys about like, well, franchising, which I have experience in. So this goes back to my restaurant experience, right? Well, do I want to franchise? I'm like, well, what's the other options? And they're like, well, what about licensing? You can license your brand. You built a brand and you can license what you're doing. And I'm like, well, how much control do I have? So I'm not a control freak, but I want to make sure that I'm protecting my brand that I built. And that you can do that through licensing. We can write it up correctly. You can do it that way. So I'm like, all right, it's a lot less money to get started in a franchise. I'm not having a franchise sales director. I'm not doing all these other things, nationally and internationally, whatever I need. So I said, all right, let's do licensing. Let's try it. And so then I'm licensing. I licensed to a few locations around Pittsburgh, and my footprint and the way my business was set up was I could fit inside a hockey rink. So a hockey rink maybe had an old arcade that had, because my first footprint was about 1,000 square feet, right? So it's like, all right, we have 1,100 square feet in this old arcade. What can we do in here? It's perfect. Let's make it work. We got hallways, we got other stuff we can do. We have an active audience, because I think the challenge was my main business, both of them so far were standalone businesses, but I moved closer to a rink. So I had a lot of traffic where people could it's like being in a facility versus being a standalone facility. Mm-hmm. Right. And so being in a facility, you had an active audience. You could partner with all the teams, all the organizations that were in there, and you automatically had people, right? You automatically had an income, a revenue, contracts, all that stuff. And so I found former coaches or former athletes that were willing to open up licenses inside hockey rinks that were hockey guys, and they opened up locations. And then there was another soccer and lacrosse facility that had another gym in. They already had a gym in there. That gym left. and they wanted something else. So then they licensed as well. And then I had a second location for a little bit, which I ended up turning it into a license and got, so to get rid of that. Cause I'm like, I need to focus on one location and doing licenses. So that's going on. As you can imagine, that's a pretty huge time commitment. All right. And again, I have 4 kids and they're growing up and doing things. And my wife's like handling all by herself because I'm running around like a madman doing everything, right? Doing all the other stuff outside of the family. And so my commitment to the family needed to be a lot greater, but I didn't know where I could find the time to do it. All right. And so I'm hiring coaches. I'm hiring people to leverage and coach certain things. But it's like, if I want to keep growing it, I'm very involved, right? Yeah. I'm the one setting up the licenses. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And it would take a lot more of that time. And so I'm like, all right, well, my family is a huge priority to me, right? I mean, huge, like that's my why, right? That's a big foundation for me. And it's like, well, it is being neglected. So where do I go from here? Like, and then now it's like, I'm feeling trapped. It's like, I love all aspects of what I'm doing, but it's killing my relationship with my family. And that's like my goal is to be I want to be the best husband, best dad. I want to win at that, right? I want to be there for them and build that team. Like, I need to build that team and take that in the right direction. And so then, we're praying on it. And at the time, there were some odd jobs. And I'm like, man, I'm not moving here. I'm not moving there. Robert Moore's head strength job opened up, but it was paying less than what I was getting paid to contract already with 4 teams. And it's more of a commitment. I'm like, no, because then if I take a true NCAA job, then I can't have my business. I'm like, if I'm going to do that, it's got to be, I want to start fresh somewhere else, right? Like, if I'm here, it's not going to work. And then at the time, Ohio State posted they were hiring a head strength coach for hockey. I'm just like, well, dude, that's like that bullet in the window, there right? Like, how could it be? Yeah, there were several of my athletes and hockey players out of my gym that were Ohio State, either former, current. One of the coaches was a Pittsburgh guy. Like, so I had a lot of connections. There were some players on the team that I trained at my gym. So I'm like, I can't be any more connected to any program at this level anywhere, right? So, I interviewed for it, and, I was up against some NHL coaches and some other people that were trying to get into that position, and I got the job. And so, like, all right, well, now I had to get rid of my licenses and show that that I no longer have my business. So I basically, took down the website, did all the stuff I needed to make that happen, moved the family here. And like once I accepted it, like, hey, you start in 10 days. I'm like, oh man, like, okay. So then, like, I'm living out of a hotel for a little bit, and then moved the family out here. And, because of when we moved, we had talked about it, but then we started homeschooling our kids, and they're still homeschooled. Mm-hmm. Right? So that hasn't changed. And that's a great podcast too, on the homeschooling.
I believe it.
There are a lot of advantages to that we had found. So I started having athletes in my gym that would be like, hey, I can come in at 10 in the morning. I can come in at 11. I can come in at noon. I'm like, how? Like, what do you do? Yeah. Like, you got school. Like, no, I homeschool. And, I had a lot of the girls ended up playing Division I tennis. I had some Division I wrestlers. They're like, yeah, I can do this. And then I go to this wrestling club, and then I go and I wrestle with my school. And then early in the morning, I get my work done, and I work on my schoolwork all weekend. I can work whenever I want. Like, you set your own schedule. So you learn about time management, discipline, all these things. And then they would still take school in the summer. Like, I don't have this many months to get my schoolwork done. I have all year to get it done. And it all worked. And some of them would travel. They'd spend like 3 months in Florida doing different tournaments or doing different things down there for tennis or baseball. They go play somewhere else for 3 months while they're being homeschooled. So I'm like, this is pretty interesting for advantage. Like, you're still doing team sports, still learning all these benefits and whatever. So they homeschooled. And when they came here, and then I got fully engrossed into working with Ohio State. It became really hard to I kind of had to drop my commitments with USA Hockey too, just because it was a lot to work with the hockey teams here. And then I ended up picking up the golf team. I worked with men's golf at Ohio State as well. And, it was a different, I took a lot of my team building aspects, which is a lot of what attracted them to bring me in, was the question they kept asking. And I get this a lot with a lot of teams, like, hey, what do you do? How do you handle, let's say there's 3 kids on a team that don't want to work. How do you handle that? Or we have 80% of the guys that are bought in. What about the bottom 20%? And my question is always like, well, what's your culture? Like that you're accepting that, you're allowing that to happen, not just in the weight room, but everywhere else. And I know the strength coaches are really, really, really crucial on building the team because we spend so much time. We spend more time because we're usually year round versus the sport coach will get them certain times of the year, right? And so, we're really important in building that culture and upholding that culture. And it's like, look, I'll tell you how I do it. Like I refuse to let a kid not work. And then it's like, it doesn't have to do with me being physical with them. Like I will show them more love and invest in them more than probably anyone maybe ever has besides their mom and dad, or even more than their mom and dad. I don't know what their relationships with their parents are. I said, I'm going to show them how important that is. And I want the rest of the team to show them how important that is. And that I'm in their corner. And so it's literally, we're there like 3 weeks, and there were a couple players that were in that category. And I remember one who plays in the NHL right now. It was a draft pick. He's just one of my favorite guys, Dakota Joshua. He plays for Vancouver, and he was one of the guys that just didn't want to work in the weight room. And he'll tell you that, and for whatever reason. I think he had a lot of reasons, and I'm just like, I know he liked basketball, like a lot of other things, and he's just a super athlete, tall, athletic, skilled guy, likes to win, man. He's a competitor, big time competitor. And he wasn't working, and I would just like, hey, we're not leaving until Dakota does all 9 push-ups or pull-ups correctly, whatever it was, right? Whatever exercise it was. And then, I think other coaches would, because I had a whole team to manage, so I'm walking away, and then, I'm talking to the rest of the team, managing the floor, coaching them, and then I would turn and I would see him stand there, and he would get ready to go on the next exercise, and I'd be like, time out, stop the music, like, hey, we're not moving on until that happens. And it's like he'd give pushback, and most people would let him get away with stuff. I'm like, we're not moving on. And I'd be like, hey, either, I think John Wooden was the one that was like, hey, you either do it right now, or you let me know when you come back and do it right. Like you make time to, you do it, you choose to do it right now. I'm butchering his quote, but it's a really good quote. It's either you make time to do it now, or you make time to do it later, right? So like, why not do it now while you're here? Just do it right now. Mm-hmm. And I can't remember all the details, of all of our different interactions, but I know it didn't take long for him to buy in. And that was like a miracle to most people. This guy would never do this or never do that. He's always late for this. He's always that. It's like, I'm not saying that was Dakota, but we always had guys like that, right? And I remember having a conversation with Dakota. I'm just like, Kobe Bryant. I'm talking about Kobe Bryant, and he's like, you have all these skills, you have all this stuff, and you have this. The only thing missing is your ability to work hard. And whatever that looks like, I'm not asking you to be the hardest worker in the room, because there are some studs in here that just work, man. They just work, and they work hard, and that's kind of the standard. But let's say they're all running at 100%, and you're running at 20%. I need you to be like 60, and you're already gonna be, and that makes you like, you're already one of the top players in the country at 20% in here, and it affects everything else you're doing, because those are your habits, right? Your habits need to change a little bit. Your mindset needs to change. So I'm explaining Kobe, and he's like, I don't want to be Kobe. I don't want to be Kobe. I don't want to be the greatest. And I said, that's your problem. You don't want to be the greatest, right? I said, what about how good do you want to be? And then we'd have this conversation that led to a lot of really cool stuff, getting inside his mind a little bit and understanding where he's coming from. And, I think once he realized how much I cared and how much his teammates cared, that he felt like he was letting them down if he wasn't being the best that he could be, whatever that looked like, or being at 60 or being at 80%. And so by the end, he's at 80%. And I know he'd already been to some, like, I think the Maple Leafs owned him. They owned his rights, and he had been to their prospect camps. And I think I don't know if he didn't produce or whatever it was, but you get one chance, right? And so maybe his attitude wasn't right or something there. So he kind of burnt that bridge a little bit. And it's like, hey, this Dakota you're looking at now, his senior year, is just a way different kid, and he's working. And, I think some different teams, I want to say, I think that might've been St. Louis, took a chance on him. They bought his rights out, took his rights, and then he ended up in Vancouver, and he's producing, man. He's working, he's doing great, So like, those are stories that I love, because it's like you truly have an impact in helping this kid. Because his conversation was always with me, and he used to joke about it. He's like, I'm either going to make it or I'm going to bag groceries. And that's it. And I said, man, I love you too much to let you bag groceries. Like it ain't happening. Like, and I said, and I'd be like, and why are you selling yourself short, dude? Like it's like an either or. You're either going to be the best here or you're going to be at the bottom. Like, man, like you can do really well in between somewhere. Right. And I said, I get where your mind's at. I'm going to try to fix that to where this is. And I said, but it's almost like the burn the ships kind of mentality, right? Like, you know what? I'm all right. Don't bagging groceries isn't even an option. If that's where you're at, and I'm not going to make you think there's a medium, there's somewhere in there, because to you, that's average. I don't want to be average, right? And maybe you don't want to be the best, but you tell me you don't want to be the best. But the NHL, dude, that's the best. That's the best. That's the best of the best. And it's such a small percentage. So you're telling me you want to be the best without telling me you want to be the best. So you need to accept that. And he's playing. He's doing well. So, and then, that's one thing that I think I was saying, like a couple weeks into me being there, I'm talking to the captain, Mason Yops, and he's still playing and he's incredible. He's one of the hardest workers I've ever had. And, just a super, super bright guy too, and he's just like, hey, the team realizes that you would run through a wall for us, that you would basically take us out of a burning building. You would do whatever, and it's like, that's how invested I am into all of you guys as humans and building this program, making it better. Right. And that's the culture. And so I loved Steve Rawley. Could still talk to him, often, is the head coach for Ohio State men's hockey. And, he's a super intense guy and his culture fits perfectly with the hard work. He's like, hey, we're going to go as hard as we can for 30 seconds for our shift. And then we're off. And if you're out there for a minute, you're selfish. The next guy, like we're a team, unless you get stuck out there, that's different. Like there's ways to get stuck out there, but hey, get off the ice. Like the next guy come out with fresh legs. And so being that in that good a shape that you're going 100 miles per hour or 40 miles per hour, what that stat was, like if you're going as fast as you can, you're burning it up in 30 seconds, you're coming off, you're recharging. So the recovery, the conditioning, all that hard work had to be part of what I instituted into that program. It was all part of the culture.
But COVID.
Yeah, COVID hit. There were some changes that were happening that I didn't like, and it just made coaching not super fun. And so I think I expressed it in probably too many ways. And so that ended up that I wasn't a good employee at that point. I love the team. Some things happened. So I was no longer at Ohio State. And then so after Ohio State, I'm kind of looking and my boys are playing lacrosse for Resolute, and Barry Davis was a former coach for Robert Morris University, and then the Ohio Machine. So he won a world championship here for Ohio Machine. They folded the team. And Bear is involved in a lot of things in developing lacrosse in the area and giving back to the community. And I'd known him enough that he knew JL, and he's like, hey, do you know JL Holdsworth? He's like, you guys are two dudes, you're two bros. Like you gotta, if nothing else, like you need to meet him and talk to him. He's got a couple gyms, and I know you're kind of in between figuring out what you want to do if you want to open up your own gym or start your own business again, like what you want to do. And I'm like, yeah, I'm just I'm seeing what's out there and what I want to do and where I want to do it. Getting more familiar with Columbus. I haven't been here that long, and so I met JL and we had a couple meetings, and he's just like, hey, the spot athletics, we could use someone like you in here. We need someone to help kind of again build the teams, a different set of coaching eyes in here, to help develop the coaches and help manage the facility and see where it goes. Like we had talked about licensing, which is still on the table. Like there's a licensing option, and I guess how do we scale? It's the same thing, right? Same question, just bigger facilities, a lot bigger facilities. How do we scale? How do we grow? How do we impact and reach as many people as possible? What can we do inside here to help develop our coaches, to help create that community inside? And so I've been there since I think it's been a little over 2 years now, and I've seen it change a lot, grow a lot. I've had a lot of good relationships, a lot of good coaches, and it's the same thing. Like I just had a discussion with my coaches about, some of them are like, hey, there's, we feel like we're short staffed a lot. There's a lot of turnover, and I'm explaining to them like, yeah, you got to go through, the one guy's like, you got to go through a lot of turds to get the right one. Right. Yeah, I'm like, it's kind of it, and everybody, it's hard because you're trying to gauge people off of our resume. which they're going to make it look as good as they can. And you can call references, and you're expecting them to be 100% honest with you about everything. Someone don't even call you back. And then you bring a guy in and maybe he can coach a little bit, and you see something, or you see an employee like, hey, he's a fit for now. But then you find out, 2 weeks into it, like, man, this kid or this guy or girl doesn't want to do any administrative stuff, and they don't care. So their give a shit factor is not there. And that is not how we run our program. That's not what I want for my team. And so do you invest and try to build them? And you do it for a little bit, and then it's like, well, you're just not cutting it, and I'm going to let you know that you got a 90-day probation period here, and we're coming up on 90 days. It's not going to be a fit, right? But then there's that constant evolving door, right? And we're finally, and then you have coaches move on to bigger things. They go work at a university or do whatever dreams they have, and that's kind of goes back to the building the teams, right? It's like, what are your goals? When I first came into the spot, it's like I want one-on-one meetings with everybody that works here, everybody, and it's like, are they fit for what we want? You explained the culture to me. You explained everything, the vision, direction of this business. Where do they fit, or do they fit? Maybe you had the wrong people in the bus, and that was the case for some people. And it's like, hey, this is where we're gonna go. We're gonna go pretty fast. And jail makes a lot of changes often. And it's like, I'm going to slow that down because some of those changes don't need to happen. But when we move, we're going to move pretty fast, and it might make you uncomfortable. So changing processes, it is what it is, right? But now it's more the whole thing is moving. There's a movement going on of the whole business that might make you uncomfortable. And it's like, all right, well, maybe you're not a fit for that. But I told you, I'm giving you transparency here. We're doing this. This is why we're doing this. And some people, that were on board are killing it right now, right? And some people that maybe their toe is in a little bit, and it's like, it's not going to happen. You got to be all into what we're doing. So we take it and you grow, but it's like, I got to find their goals. And it's like, if you come in to me and you're a coach and like, hey, I want to open up my own business someday. Well, then you need to learn about business. How's that happening? So it's like, we need to have some meetings about business. We need to have, and then you find out how many of your staff want to learn about business, learn about marketing, like why are we doing certain things, learn about sales, learn about all that stuff. And then, some people are like, I want to be a high level manager. I want to manage a facility like this someday. Or I want to work for Crunch Fitness, or I want to, whatever it is, I want to be a college strength coach. Great. So you got to kill it at this. You're going to work with more of the athletes. We're going to work on your coach development. When you get to that point, we can start opening up your network a little bit and introduce you to some people, depending on where you want to go. So it's like it's not, because I know a lot of times my frustrations are when I feel trapped, right? And I know I'm not the only one like that, right? So you feel like you're trapped, like, oh man, I'm stuck here. I can't get out. I'm just a coach. I'm just a manager. I'm just this, right? But it's like, no, like we sat down with your goals. I created a path for you. Maybe it wasn't clear enough, right? So let's go back and revisit that. And maybe we've been so busy on moving the business this way that some of the meetings I said I was going to have with you haven't been happening. Call me out on it. Like, hey, this is a two-way. The relationships are a two-way thing. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm willing to take ownership that I didn't have these meetings, but because I had to push you aside for your business development meeting because I'm putting out fires over here because you're not handling some of the stuff with your coaching, right? Or maybe you are. Maybe it's somebody else. Maybe it's we're having some staffing issues, or the floor flooded. Whatever it is, there's things I got to handle that are a high priority than what this is right now. Doesn't mean I still don't care about you. Like, I'm still going to be invested in what you're doing, and it's getting some of these younger coaches to understand, like, we're always in that mentality, like, well, no, I need it now. Like, has to happen now. Like, I expect to be successful now. This is this. And it's like, dude, there's some delayed gratification here. You came in at this level, right? You want to be a college strength coach. You got to be at this level to be at the schools you named for me. You got to be up here. Okay, this isn't happening in 6 months because you're so much you got to learn, and you've never worked with full teams. So you have to understand the dynamics of teams, and like, I'm your team building guy. Like, I'm going to help you with this all the way. And if you get at any point along this journey, you're not coachable, it ain't going to happen. So, and anytime you get too selfish along here and don't understand something, like, you got to ask. But if you get too selfish and you're just like, well, I'm ready to go now. I'm going to go. You guys aren't giving me this. I'm like, good luck. There's a certain point where you can't coach someone that's not coachable, right? Mm. I always say, like, uncoachable kids become unemployable adults. Well, I'm kind of unemployable too, but that's a different entrepreneurship. But there's the same thing there. It's like, are you coachable? So you can't even be a good entrepreneur if you're not willing to learn from other people and take a true, honest look at where you are,
or learn from your own experiences.
Exactly.
Man, I know a lot of people who they don't even learn from the things that they go through. They have things go wrong and they just, like you said, blame everyone else, or they go, well, this is just who I am.
Yep.
That's one of my least favorite things when people say, oh, this is just who I am. I don't want to change myself. And I'm like, well, don't be in business.
Yep.
Or you run a one-person business. That's the only way you can do that. But,
yeah, and you're going to attract people that aren't good either, right? I think it's more destructive criticism, right, of yourself instead of constructive. It's like, well, no, I'm not good at this. I'm not good at math. I'm not good at that. It's like, well, you're never going to be.
Oh yeah,
ever.
You're leaning into the labels that you give yourself.
Yep.
And there's a lot of power to that. All right, Jeremy, take us home, man. What's next? What's coming up? It sounds like there's a new chapter of your life that probably will be coming next.
Yeah. Well, I did not get to say so talk about homeschooling. I think it was around the time of COVID, so 2020. Kids are homeschooled, and they have to do a project, right, and a business project. So we're like, why don't we create? We were just watching some videos about e-commerce and drop shipping and Shopify and all that stuff, and the kids are all watching it. My boys are younger then, right? So they're just like, hey, why don't we start like an online apparel business? And I'm just like, yeah, why not? Like, sure. It's a project. We'll invest in it. It's just a homeschooling project, right? Sure. Let's see what happens. So they create like this business plan and they're coming up, trying to come up with the names for all four of them. And then it's just the boys and the girls, like, what do we do? And so they're just like, well, how about like Sons of Thunder, cause it's biblical stuff too. And they're just like, no, well, that's all taken. That's already trademarked everywhere else. And so then like, how about the Boom Bros? And we're just like, I kind of like that. It kind of rings a little bit. So then that's when Boom Bros Apparel was born. And it's evolved a little bit because it's like, well, we just want to be, because it was just like, hey, we're just a project, right? We don't care. Hey, I'm Dash and Caden, my two boys, like, hey, we got this company now. Isn't it cool? Kind of thing, right? And then it had evolved into, I'm like, look, if you're going to do this, the girls like, we want to be a little involved too. So like, we're going to learn about social media. We're going to learn about all these different things. So it turned into this really cool project to where they've all taken a little bit of ownership, the girls more than the boys, honestly. We got a Shopify site and they're doing a lot more, but the boys will do the videos because they're the face of the Boom Bros. And then it evolved into like, hey, Dad, we want to morph this into kind of what you talk about with your mindset, the mindset and the lifestyle. It's like, well, I call that, I'd heard a couple of years ago some different videos and like Deion Sanders, some other coaches were talking about being built different. Mm-hmm. Right, and I saw
the shirts. And
stuff.
They
talk about being built different. Like, look at that guy. You look around your team, and it's like, well, of course that guy can squat that. He's just built different. Or this guy gets that many yards. He's just built different. And you got people like that are being super successful. Even in business, like, well, he's just built different. He's wired different. And so I'm like, man, I kind of like that because it's a choice. I think because I
agree.
We all have that the ability to be something that is extraordinary, right? Because whatever that strength is, we all have it, right? We all have it, but most of us choose to just not take action, or none of the steps, none of the habits, not even recognizing what it is, or being nudged to a door that you can just push open. And because like I take that chance, shit, maybe I'm supposed to be an actor, and maybe more doors open up immediately, and it's like I can't say no to this. I have to do this, right? But I wouldn't have known unless I took that little step, right? And it's like, there are quotes, I always butcher it too, but it's like Les Brown talking about, you don't have to be great to get started, but you have to start to be great, right? Yeah. So it's like, it's taking that first step, and that's often the hardest thing. But anyway, the whole build different thing is kind of that, I've morphed that into the program that I kind of want to launch, right? Or I am going to launch. It's not kind of, I'm going to launch a program, and who better than, I look at, the need for leadership. And I think I might have talked about it last time, right? Like that they put kids in leadership positions, but they don't teach them how to be leaders. Mm-hmm. They don't teach them anything about leadership. They don't teach, a lot of coaches are these adults, these parents that have never been part of a successful team. but they are volunteering their time to coach this youth sports program or middle school or even high school. And it's like, how do you build a team? How do you successfully build a team of these kids? And they have no idea. That's never been done before, and I think I might've talked about, I can't remember, like I've talked about this a lot lately, but it's like hanging a banner, like you like Eli Manning, his dad, when he got drafted to the NFL, there were some other teams that were talking to him. And he's like, no, he's going to play for New York. He's going to play for the Giants. And like, why? He's like, because they have championship banners hanging in the stadium. And like, we have banners made to playoffs. And he's like, you celebrate mediocrity. They celebrate success. And he's like, that's the culture. That's the culture. I don't want my son in that culture. My son's going to go to New York and he's going to win a Super Bowl because they win Super Bowls. And he did, right? And I think Kobe's dad had the same thing. Like, he's not going to go play for Philadelphia, wherever he was. He's not going to play here, play there. He's going to play for the Lakers. And he did. And the rest is history, right? So it's like, do you have so many programs that celebrate being average or celebrate that kind of mediocrity, or just that we made the playoffs, let's hang a banner. And it's like, dude, you made the playoffs, man. Like that's great. Like that's progress. But it's not the culture you need to be in, right? You need to be in a culture that breeds success every time. And if you don't win a championship, like something's wrong, right? And so like that's that built different mentality, that mindset that's like, I'm willing to create. From the time my kids were young, I always say, the two things, because in USA Hockey, they have a lot of great sports psychologists when we travel with the Olympic teams or U18, and they always talk about controlling the controllables, right? Like you can control the controllables. So what does that mean to a 10-year-old kid, right? It's like when you wake up, I want you to control your attitude that you have and the effort you put towards everything the second those feet hit the ground, like everything. What kind of effort? And I said, if you can crank those two things out to the best of your ability, the attitude and effort, and keep it going great all day, and you do that every day, day in, day out, dude, your life will be significantly different. And so those are two things and then they always, the way that started was I had coaches ask me like, hey, when you watch your kids play sports, what are you looking at? How are you judging them? Because there are games like they would lose. I'm like, well, they're going to lose games. Like I get it. But I've told them from the time they were young, it's all about attitude and effort. So if I watch you jogging to pick up a ground ball in lacrosse instead of sprinting, or jogging to a position where your teammate needs to get rid of the ball because he's got so much pressure and he's getting beat up basically by the stick, and he needs an outlet, and you're jogging over kind of nonchalantly and your stick is down. That's attitude, right? Towards your teammate, towards what is going on there. And then there's no effort. And I said, so I'm going to judge my kids. I don't care what the coach says. I don't care that kind of stuff, right? I want attitude and effort. And I literally judge every kid out there like that. And it's like, and then it's like, well, I don't know why we're losing. We have so much skill set. I'm like, dude, your kids have terrible attitude and the effort is shit too. So if you can create a culture that improves those two things, that's the great starting point. Attitude towards the refs, attitude towards your teammates, attitude towards anything, right? And take it from an attitude of it's your fault, man. Like you should have got that ground ball. You should have threw it sooner. And like, well, your stick wasn't up. So it's just ownership, right? Taking ownership of all that stuff, less blame. And then gratitude, right? Change that from that negative to not necessarily always positive, but it is gratitude, right? Like, what do hey, this is so awesome. I'm playing here and the rain is pouring on me, but my teammates my brothers are here with me. We're all going to bleed in battle. This is amazing. Like, this is fun. The other team doesn't like this stuff. And that goes back to the culture of hard work, right? They said the harder you work, the harder it is to surrender, right? The more you put in, the more you're willing to give, right? It's like, no. I'm not bowing out this easy, man. You have no idea. You have no idea who I am, what I'm made of. That ain't happening. And that's that built different mindset. And it's all a choice. It's all a choice. And so I'm creating kind of a blueprint for kids, parents to give to their kids. We're working on some online courses and some just gratitude journals, some journaling stuff, because a lot of it starts with the habits, right? When you wake up, what are you grateful for? Before you go to bed, what happened during the day, whatever. And there's like all these different prompts that you can get through a gratitude journal. And then the newsletter, it's just the usual kind of, stuff course. And then I'd like to, my thing is like, there are so many teams, so many people that need, like groups that need that. Cause it's not even about that. Like, like I said, I think I said last time, my daughter, my one daughter's part of she's in a leadership role in a group. it's like a business project, international, and they meet through Zoom. So it's like through Wharton School. And it's a business project, and that's why I think she was asking you business questions about investments and stuff. But you know, she's leading it, and she's like, she called me again yesterday. It's every Friday, and she's just like, Dad, this was terrible. I was explaining something, you know, and I realized that I took 5 minutes to explain something, and they all like, yeah, we already did that. We knew how to do that. And I said, well, did you ask them? Like, hey. She's like, well, I sent them an agenda, what we're going to do, but I never asked them if they already knew how to do it. It's like, I felt like such an idiot because I wasted all that time. And like, so it was communication. So it was just teaching her about communication. And if I wasn't there as a resource, how is she going to learn any of that stuff? So like, where are kids getting this kind of information? Where are they learning this stuff? Well, you know, one, they've got to want to learn it, right? Is the big thing. Or maybe their parents have to recognize that they need this skill set. But everything, like all these personal development things, all these personal growth things are for us, right? They're literally for adults, usually, you know, 99% of them. I think Jocko Willink put some together for kids, you know, like living, and my kids have those books, you know, but it's like just, and it's about ownership, discipline, all those things, right? For younger kids. And, but that's such a cool thing, because if you can get them to create those habits at a younger age and understand, you know, that mindset is something, and how far they get, right, is complete and control by them, right? So but how do they get the resources? How do you get that in front of them? So like, you know, it's just finding those outlets and those avenues to get into the schools, get in front of the teams, get in front of individuals, and it's creating programs for that, workshops for that, online courses, workbooks, all those things that can help them along with that. And then, you know, probably hosting some seminars, like some, you know, 2 or 3 day type things, whether it's online or not, and just bringing different professionals in that want to address some different topics in that as well. And then obviously I want to have a podcast too, because
you should, man. You should.
Apparently I have an okay radio voice.
I think you do well with it. Yeah. I'll tell you one story, and then we can get out of here. It's funny that we've both kind of fallen on that phrase, built different, because that's something that I don't really say to other people. I kind of say it to myself, honestly. So what's the hardest thing that you think you've ever done physically at like one period of time? Not like, oh, I had like 6 months where we were whatever doing Hell Week. But what do you think is the most difficult thing you've ever done physically, like at one given period of time?
Physically?
After you were just like, that was absolutely brutal. I don't know if I could do that again.
I mean, there were days, even like when I was wrestling in college, some of the workouts, some of the stuff, because we had to run up and down ski slopes and carry guys up ski slopes, and then, you know, maybe the next day we're running 10 miles, and I'm a bigger guy, and then we get up in the morning and sprint a mile, time miles. I mean, that stuff was hard, but it's like, I mean, maybe I love that shit though. Like I'm a little sick about that. Yeah. But I think that like even growing up, some of the worst stuff I did was like shoveling shit, man. Like you shovel manure and you're looking down, and you're breathing that stuff, you know, and you know, you got long overalls on, your coveralls, and you're covered up, and it's 98 degrees out in Cuban, and you're stuck in this barn, and all your friends are out having fun. So the mental aspect made that miserable for me. And I'm with my older brother, and we're shoveling shit that might have some maggots and stuff in it, and just to give people a great visual, right? So it's like straw and maggots and just gross bugs, and you know, and then you might slip and fall in it, and it's just like you're putting it in a manure spreader, and you got to go spread it. It's gross. Or then you got to remove a dead cow from the barn, and it's 180 pounds, and you're picking it up, and the maggots are falling on your head, and you know. Anyway,
well, I asked that because the hardest thing that I've ever done physically, I can say it's not even really close. Last Memorial Day, I did a 12-hour walk. Have you heard about this? Have you heard about people doing these 12-hour walks? So this endurance athlete, Colin O'Brady, he kind of started this like movement, if you will. He had a mountain climber that he was good friends with that died in like an avalanche.
Oh man!
And he's like, I just literally walked outside, wanted to clear my head, and I like went and walked. No headphones, no nothing. No headphones, no podcast, no music. You're not checking your phone during it. It's like you completely unplug, and the goal is to walk for 12 hours. You don't have to walk the whole time. You can take breaks, you know, stuff like that. But that's the goal, is to walk throughout the duration of the 12 hours. And it's not like a machismo, like, let me see how far I can walk. You just do it.
Just go.
You know?
Yep.
So I set out on Memorial Day to do this, and I actually walked here from my house. It turns out it's almost exactly 17 miles here and there and back. So while I'm on my way back through Dublin and Plain City, I just people were like, what were you thinking? And I was like, I was just talking to myself. I was like, dude, you're built different. I was like, you are a fucking man.
Yeah.
I was like, you're bad. And nobody out here doing this. And I just like kept doing it over and over and over and over again. And by the time I got to like mile like 33, I was just like literally broken. Like I know people are gonna be like, it was just walking. People do these endurance races, these 200-mile runs. It was absolutely, and I'm pretty fit, you know. Yeah. I was a sub 5-minute miler in high school and in college.
Awesome. Yeah.
I was the fastest guy on the soccer team in terms of distance. Like I'm an endurance athlete, but it was just absolutely brutal. And I just kept telling myself that over and over and over again. And to your point, it's not that I'm born different. It's that I have built myself to be different.
Yep.
Like the things that I have done throughout this have led me to where I am. So now I am built different.
Yep.
And it's an ongoing thing.
It is. And that's exactly right. That's a great story, you know, because even like those ultra marathons, people are walking, like they're walking by the end 'cause it's crazy. And when you hear about stuff like that, my boys.
I challenge anybody who's like, Alex is a wuss. Like, do it. See if you can beat 35 miles.
Go do it. Go do it. And I know that my boys like listen to Goggins, even though he might say some things that are inappropriate, but it's just like, you know, and they're always like, you don't know me, son. And it's like that's it, man. Like, go ahead, challenge me. Like, tell me I can't do something, right? And so there's a lot of that in that built different mentality, and it's like, you know, that's kind of what you know, Boom Bros. So it's boombroapparel.com. They've kind of evolved into that. And then, you know, I've coached JeremyHoy.com, and we're working on that now. And then like, you know, even within the Spot. So like, you know, the Spot Athletics, you know, working with JL, like we have plans for a lot of cool stuff, and working together on, like, you know, he works with a lot of high performers and executives and different things like that. And it's like, you know, I do love building teams, and so whatever that looks like, but I just know that, you know, my market, because of my kids, is like, hey, I found a way to kind of get through to them, you know, to where I feel like they're all built different in the mindset thing. But in some ways, there's a lot we got to work on because they're still young, and just like all of us, like we're always working on getting better in certain areas of our life, you know. But that first step always goes back to, you know, who are you? Take a good look in the mirror and be honest with yourself, you know, or find somebody that can be honest with you, and not your mom, you know, because it's like, they're usually going to tell you you're the greatest, you're this, you know, mom loves you. Like, I know mom loves me, but, you know, what do I suck at? What am I good at? And it's like, and usually for me, it's my wife. She'll be really quick to tell me what I suck at and things that I'm good at. But it's, if I ever need that, you know, and then who is your accountability partner? Who do you have to kind of hold you accountable on that journey? So, you know, it's just creating those products, and I'm kind of excited to get that out there. And I know that, you know, I do have a quote here that I saw. I was recently at a conference in Orlando, and it was a 3-day like workshop. Russell Brunson was putting together some stuff for funnels, and he brought in like Eric Thomas is a great speaker. First time I heard him speak, and it was pretty cool. So he brought in Jocko. Like, there were some really good speakers. Wow. And the one guy, so I think last year Ed Milet was there, and one of the guys quoted him in his presentation, and I thought, man, it was a pretty good quote. It was like, one of the most insidious forms of child neglect is a parent who doesn't chase their dreams and potential. And I'm like, and that was like the first presentation on like day 3 or day 4. And I'm looking at my wife, I'm like, man, that hit me. So it's like, what, you know, how can I reach, you know, I got to show my kids that I can't just tell a kid to go after his dreams, right? So it's like, it's lead by example, right? And I know leading by example, I've heard coaches say, well, that's not truly leadership, but it's part of it, right? It's part of it, because you got to be able to communicate. There's all these other things. I get it, right? But you still have to be able to do it and I want to show my kids, hey, I'm still chasing my dreams, and I'm not going to settle for anything, right? Like, so if I'm good where I am, I'm comfortable. It's like, nah, you know, screw that. I'm headed towards uncomfortable, but I'm going big. I'm going for greatness. I'm tired of being good, right? So like, what does that entail? And then I try to, again, transparency. I'm including them to get buy-in from my kids. Like, look, here's where I am in this process. You know, me and my wife, like, we're going to be working a ton. Like, we're going to be spending a lot of time on the computer. We're doing this, and this. So you guys, when you see us, we're not trying to neglect you, and we will include you in as much of this business stuff as possible, because this gratitude journal is going to get tried out on you guys first. And all these things I'm doing, I've already been trying them out with you guys, with your teams, with your teammates, to understand, does this stuff work or not? But I feel like so many parents, get into a spot where like, hey, this is good. I'm good enough. And it's like, you know, what are you teaching your kids? What are you teaching your kids, right? And you know, it's like, how do they become built different? Well, I have the blueprint.
I love it, man. That's a great place to end. Where can people find you if they want to check out Boom Bros, they want to check out your coaching stuff, some of your other content online?
So mainly on Instagram, it's Coach Jeremy Hoy, and then CoachJeremyHoy.com, and then BoomBrosApparel.com. Those are the three areas. And if they're in Columbus, they're in the area, and they want to stop in and say hi, I'm at Spot Athletics in Dublin.
Beautiful, man. Jeremy, I can't thank you enough, man. This was awesome.
Yeah, thanks again.
All right, thanks, bro.
Yep.